You're live.
You were live.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Trustees business meeting for Monday, October 25th. We're trying out a new time, 7 o'clock. And let's begin our meeting, as we always do, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
for
which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Well, looks like our board showed up for the new time. And let's start with finding out where everybody is. Mr. Nadeau.
President, Groseal Township.
Mr. Porcerelli.
President, Groseal Township.
Mr. Bletcher. Mr. Bletcher.
Present, Groseal Township.
Mr. Jarecki.
President, Groseal Township.
Ms. O'Connor.
Present, Groseal Township.
Mr. Yeager.
Present, Groseal Township.
And Mr. Budney is present in Groseal Township also. Moving right along, additions, deletions. Do we have any? Mr. Jarecki.
Right. So in the last couple of weeks, we got the results of the RFP back for the bridge engineer without success. And I'd like to put it, I don't know if it requires a vote or anything, but I'd like to put it on the agenda as we spoke, Jim, I think on Monday as a discussion item. I think we put a lot of work into that, and as a board had a lot of discussion and participation. And I don't think we should give up on it just because our first shot didn't succeed. I think we can modify it and cast it a little further. So that's what I'm looking for.
You would like to add a discussion item?
Yeah.
To the agenda.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll support that. Any other discussion on this, or can we go right? Yes, Ms. O'Connor.
Yeah, I just want to ask Mike to clarify, what do you want the topic to be?
I think we should, like a lot of times in business, at least in the world that I come from, a lot of times your first round at a RFP or RFQ, about 20% of the time doesn't succeed. And I think we need to look at modifying it and casting our net a little further. So we, for the most part, it was conflicts with Wayne County. And so I think we got to go further out so that we don't.
All I'm asking is, you want to add to the discussion agenda an item to modify the RFQ for bridge engineer?
Yes, that'd be it. And further the cast our net too. So that's probably more important.
Okay. Any other comments? Joe?
Oh, yeah, just a question, Jim, to clarify. Mike, are you asking for just discussion, or are you asking to put it on an action item to vote further to cast the net?
Well, yeah, because I don't know if it requires a vote. I mean, we did the RFP. It didn't get us the results. So let's continue to
well, it would. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to go out again, it would require a new vote. It'd be a new RFP.
Okay, well then put it on for a vote.
For an action.
Go to an action item then.
So it's going to be Mike is asking for an action item, to redo the bridge engineer.
RFQ
for the bridge engineer.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Any others? Does everybody understand it's an action item, not a discussion item? And so let's, without any other questions regarding it, we'll take a vote, starting with Mr. Nadeau.
Aye.
Mr. Porcerelli? Is that an aye, Joe?
Oh, I'm sorry, aye, yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Carl?
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
I'm gonna let you vote, but I can guess. Uda?
Nay.
Nay, okay. Jameson?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So we will add a action item regarding going back out for another RFP for the bridge engineer.
Okay, and that would be action item number 1, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Any other ads? Mr. Bletcher?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to add as an action item, a motion to add the posting of the chief of police position. And that would be a motion that the Groseal Township Board have the town.
Don't get into the motion. Let's get into,
All right.
Stay with the ad.
All right.
Okay, so we have a motion to add an action item, posting the police chief.
Position of the chief of police.
Carl, do you mean posting it open to the public?
Posting it for internal as well as external.
Support.
We have an action and a motion and a support. Comment?
Yeah, I would like to comment on that.
Mike?
So we met as a commission on Tuesday.
Let's just clarify, Mike, this is a discussion about whether or not to add this to the agenda.
Yeah, I was going to give you my reason why I don't think we should add it.
Okay.
Because I had put in a request on Monday of last week. And I think, Jim, based on our conversation, you were okay with it to add an item to, elect or provide a recommendation for chief of police.
That is correct. I was in support of you trying to add it. Yes. Not in support necessarily of the item itself. Two different things.
Yeah, no, I acknowledge that. The thing that I'm confused about is I thought the rule was, the ordinance was, or policy was, if you had your recommendation by the Monday before, basically a week in advance, it would get on the agenda. And I talked to Brian, he was going to put it on there. Then I guess he talked to you and you pulled it off. Something about the news.
No, that's not accurate.
Point of order.
Yes.
Stay to the topic.
A good point, but that isn't how it transpired. Just for your knowledge. And again, let's just stay with, we're talking about adding an action item.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Or
the
not
issue
adding.
before us, is just the adding of an action item regarding posting the police chief.
So you can say everything you want to say if the item passes and is on the agenda. The only question here is to add or not to
Yeah,
add.
and it's kind of a yes/no thing, really, this one.
I mean, it's the same logic, isn't it? Why someone would not want it added versus why they would not vote for it.
Sure. So if it gets added, you'll be able to discuss why you think it shouldn't. But this is just adding it.
Okay.
Joe, you have a finger raised.
Yeah, I was just waiting for you to finish, that's all. I was wondering, last meeting, Jim, I'm not sure if it was last meeting or the meeting before, is you only wanted add-ons if it was an emergency.
Correct.
Can Carl explain why this is an emergency?
Carl?
Yes, certainly. The commission meeting, police commission meeting last Tuesday night came up with a recommendation that the township promote Ken Pellin to the position of police chief, or to the position of chief of the Grosse Ile Township Police Department. Mike had made a suggestion of a deadline for January 1. That is, that if Ken is able to return by then, that most certainly should be done. And the chairman indicated that it should be open-ended. My concern is that we have a position that is vacant with the departure retirement of Chief Hardin effective December 3rd. We do not have a deputy chief. We do not have a tenant that has been in there more than several weeks. And we also have the retirement of Ruth Kaledas. Joe, I think you described her as the glue that held the department together. And the concern is that in about 5 weeks, we're not going to have a chief. We're not going to have a deputy chief. We're going to have a lieutenant. While he did a terrific job for the several weeks that he took over, he has been a sergeant for a very long time and doesn't have the training and background, and now we're losing Ruth. I think that that is just unacceptable. I think that is, to me, the definition of an emergency. If we do nothing, we have a position that is critical to the function of the township board, and we have no idea when Mr. Pellin will ever be able to return. And I think that that vacancy, certainly under normal circumstances, would be questionable. But when we look at having 3 other positions as well that are vacant, I think that cries out for an emergency and something that needs to be done. Now, I'm not suggesting that we have only external, but both applications that can be received internally as well as externally to help us with this transition, with this time.
Don't get into the action item itself.
But that's it.
Yeah. So time is of the essence.
In a nutshell, yes.
All right. So
Yeah, hold on 1 second, Jameson. I'm sorry. I just had a follow-up. I apologize, Jameson. Jim, so you would feel that that's an emergency as the supervisor?
Time is of the essence. Yeah, and that's usually what the emergency is going to be, is that time is a big factor in this, and it'll be up to the board to decide whether that time is of an essence or not, again, with your vote.
All right, time to call the question.
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure, Jameson.
So I think that I think this is one of those things that it's important to get it right. Right? That was the argument that everyone was making when, you know, we postponed this in the spring and in the summer. Like, it's important to get this right. So a rush to replace the chief of police I mean, it hasn't been a rush this whole time, since like January, February, March. And now it's an emergency, is kind of concerning to me, I guess, is my only.
Well, I would disagree.
We could have acted on this months and months and months ago when we received a recommendation from the police commission. And now we're in this position because the board didn't act.
And there were reasons why the board didn't act in that. Well, all this is, if I understand it correctly, all Mr. Bletcher is asking for is action item is a posting of, there's no set. We're not talking about setting anything else other than posting, going out with a posting of the position, which by itself is probably 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 30 days for it to be out there at least. So it's not like this is going to be done next week. And the only issue here is the posting. That's all we're talking about, is posting. And if I understand it correctly, it's posting internally or externally. So everybody within the department is able to put in, and external people will be able to put in. Is that correct, Carl?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I would just point out that this would be once again bypassing the police commission. Like,
How is it bypassing? No, absolutely not.
No discussion of this. We are voting whether or not to.
It's whether
add the
to-
item to the agenda.
That's right. This is pre police commission.
We can discuss it at the action item, Jameson.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
okay,
All right. With that, Jameson,
nay.
nay. Ms. O'Connor,
Aye.
aye. Mr. Jarecki,
Nay.
nay. But Mike, I didn't hear
Yes,
you.
nay. I'm
Nay.
sorry.
Carl,
Aye.
Joe,
Nay.
and David,
Aye.
and I vote, I vote aye also. Action item will be added, number 2, regarding posting the police chief position. Okay. Anything else? Any other additions or deletions? Seeing none, like a motion to approve the
So-
amended agenda.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. All right. Carl?
Aye.
Hang on just a second. I need all my notes. Aye. Mike?
Aye.
Jameson?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Uta?
Aye.
And I vote aye also. The amended agenda is approved. We've added 2 action items, one concerning bridge engineer, one concerning police chief posting. With that, we have a presentation tonight by Finance Director Ian Darzniek regarding our audit. And with that, Ann,
Yep,
do you need a shared screen?
I will. Yep.
Okay, take it away.
All right. Good evening. I'm here with Michael Georges, who is our partner at Yo and Yo. So he'll be on the other side and we'll be able to answer any questions that we may have. So obviously the audit was turned in. It's 100 and some pages. I do have it on my Munitrex site and I'll put it on my website tomorrow. We'll get it out there. Just a few things. Like I said, it's 100 and some pages. We're not going to go through it all. What we'll do is just go over some of the highlights for the year, and then we'll do a little presentation, and then you can ask questions. Like I said, and I also have hard copies available for pickup if anyone wants one. So some of the highlights of last year, again, we were dealing with COVID and a lot of weird things were happening. Some activities were a little bit slower, so some revenue was a little bit less, and but the expenditures were less too, because it just wasn't as busy with construction and stuff like that. So the building department was a little bit slower than normal. So that had a little effect, but all in all, we did get paid. So we got our taxes in and we kept the township going with the essential services. So all that happened. So just a couple little things. State share revenue that we get from the state last year stayed about the same, which is good. And we're actually seeing an increase for the current year, which is good because sales tax is going up. So that's going to be good. Property taxes went up because the SEV went up, and I'll show a graph later that shows how much it's going up and how much it reduced in the last over the past. We still had only six building permits, which is low. The year before we had like 12. So that caused a little problem with COVID and building material, and everyone knows they're dealing with that. In February of last year, We received $388,000 from Wayne County to help us with some roads sectioning. So the county did give us some money that we used to help do the road sectioning improvements. Last year, the Recreation Department borrowed $75,000 to fix one of their piers. Remember when it was underwater? So their revenues were down from boat income from last year, but the waters were high and they borrowed money to fix that. So they did do that. The township, we sold some vacant land, would help general fund in the amount of $123,000. So that helped the financial situation of general fund. It was township owned. It was not open space owned. It was just township owned. Also, we had, in 2019, we had some capital improvement bonds of about $6 million. And this year we spent $1.5 million for that. And that was for the water main that you see going on right now all over the island. So that was money for that. The airport paid back some of its loans that it had outstanding. And all in all, total township wide, pension cost increased by about $213,000, and we'll discuss that more in detail. And actual healthcare cost across the board decreased by about $70,000. So those are the financial things, and then we'll just go over a quick presentation. So let me do that. Is this okay to do it like this? Can everyone see it? So this will be the presentation. So all in all, we get, again, an independent auditor's report, and that's what Yo and Yo do. And they make sure that we are following all governmental standards. And they said that we have pretty much conformed with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So this is a common audit, clean audit opinion. Next is when we put together, we looked at, this is a big thing, and our taxable values, where they've come, and they're slowly going back up. So that's good. So if we look at the drop in 4 years from 2008 to 2012 was when we bottomed out. We lost about 18% revenue in a matter of 4 years. So that was a huge decrease. And now you can see it is going up slowly. So 8 years later, it's still 6%, almost 6% lower than it was in 2008. So it is coming back up, but it's coming back up at such a slow pace. And that's because of headlights. So we hear about that all the time, that, taxable values are increasing, and they're increasing on your own houses, as we've seen before. If we look at township millages, this is the total township millages of all millages, including general fund, police, fire, roads, bike path maintenance. It's all the millages that we have out there to run the township. If we look in 2012, when we have bottomed out, our total taxable mills was 15.21. And today, so when people say we're raising their money, we're raising their taxes, we have not. The total millages of today's dollars is 14.87. 14.87. So we're living within our means. We're not raising taxes. Our millages have declined. If we look at the total revenues that have been generated from this, again, when we bottomed out, we were at 8.4 million across the board. We are now at 9.6 million. And that is for everything. That is for the SSES, that is for sewer separation, that is for the judgment, anything that's on your tax bill. We receive about a little over $9.5 million across the board to run the township. So then we're going to go to a couple of the other funds. We'll save general fund for last. But over, you can see, like I said, in the year of COVID, the recreation department, this would be their fund balance. This would be their money in the bank. It's a good indication of where they are today. So it's just like your savings account, and that's what we look at this. So in 2021, the recreation department went from 182 to 233. So They did well last year, and we'll look at some of the components in a later slide. The farm is just monies that are in the bank to help do some improvements at the farm that are monies generated from the cell tower revenue. It's not taxes, it's cell tower revenue. So that's how we operate the farm. And there's 58,000 there. Library is basically an in and out for your library services to use Trenton Library. And that pretty much is an in and out situation, and it pretty much stays the same. Also, there's that bike path millages. There was some bike path repair, so that stayed the same this year, but they also did some major improvements to the bike paths in the past year. Drainage is used for like drainage grants. A lot of people take advantage of that, so that's nice. So there is money available to help people out township-wide with any drainage problems that they may have. Roads, we're building up a little thing because I know that some roads want to be done, that we could help get some of the roads done. Obviously, it's not enough to do anything major. It just touches the surface, literally just touches the surface. And then open space, it's basically sitting there. It's used for open space maintenance, and for there's about 150 left for purchases that we haven't used in a while. And the maintenance is just there to take care of maintenance and trees that are down. There is no current millage right now. So once that money is gone, it's gone. We look at public safety building. That's just a fund for cell towers, again, that are used to take care of major maintenance around the public safety building between the police and fire. So they use that. There's about $500,000 of drug law enforcement monies available that help pay for things in the police department that are needed. The fire department, their fund balance went down a little bit to $359,000. The fire operating millage is something that we need to take a look at. As we all know, our volunteer fire department is run specifically with, they get benefits as their only benefit for doing what they do. And it has been depleting over the last couple of years because healthcare is raised and we need new firefighters, trying to recruit people. And to do that, you have to pay them their healthcare, and healthcare has been raising. So we need to look at that a little bit. Not a emergency, but it's something that we need to consider. Fire equipment has $1.5 million. What that is for is the replacement of a fire truck. We can't combine these two, and I know a lot of people would like to do that. The millages were passed for very specific reasons, and they do not cross each other. So even though we'd like to, we have to keep them separate based on whatever the language was voted for. We look at our water department. So the Department of Public Services is our water. Basically, our water and sewer have increased basically due to rate increases that are need to take care of the water and sewer mains. I know they're underground. We don't see them, but we do need to maintain them. Refuse just about stay the same. That's basically an in and out. We charge what we pay for your trash and recycling pickup. Airport, if you look at the airport revenues, that's just all the T hangars that just went up slightly. Commerce Park revenues went up about 17%. You can see some of the construction and building that's going on and the development within the Commerce Park. So that is helping the revenue stream at the airport. And then fuel sales is what it is. So we talked about Water's Edge. Water's Edge is contained within the rec department. Actually, the golf was crazy because it was the first thing people were able to do. So people got on and golfed, and look at it, it went up 39% or $40,000, which was great. Like I said, that was the only thing we could do, and we did it. The marina went down again because the water was too high and she had to fix the piers. And pool was iffy this year, but this year that we just went through, the pool did really well because people went back to swimming. So the prior year, people were a little skittish in the beginning. So like I said, COVID did have a little effect on certain areas, but for the majority, it did not. We want to look at long-term debt. Actually, no new debt was issued for the current year other than a little $75,000 for recreation for in between, but nothing was out to market. We did not finance any long-term debt through municipal bonds. So our actual debt load went down from 31.9 to 27.8. Our actual principal and interest due with any 1 year is about $4.5 million. We always talk about the net pension liability and our other post-employment benefits. The pension liability has actually went up a little bit, just to do the age of our population and also the unfunded part. So what they're doing over the years is we are now, they have shrunk the amortization. So we're paying more every year and we are keeping up with our payments. So we started this process several years ago and we were at a 30% amortization. So just imagine if they took your house payment over 30 years and now said, you know what, we're gonna tighten that down every year. We're now at 18 years. So they have squashed us. They had ballooned our payment. So we're actually paying more. So we get that unfunded portion paid down in 18 years. That's the theory of this. So that went up a little bit. But I'm glad to report that our OPEB, which is our healthcare benefit, unfunded liability had actually went down. And what we have been doing for our pension and healthcare is we're pre-funding it. So we actually have, we started to with the pension, the same way as we did with our other health and benefits, we're actually pre-funding. So what it is doing is we're taking advantage of not my fund balance sitting in the bank, but we're taking advantage of their interest rates that are so much more, and we can't invest in things like that. So we are taking advantage and we are actually pre-funding it and let it sitting at MERS, gaining interest and helping with our value as our asset valuation. So that has been working. We just started doing that. We had been doing it for our post-employment benefit. We were for the healthcare. We started at zero. We have it in a trust, a health savings trust. We pre-fund it. We don't pay any more than we have to. And as of the end of this year, we're up to $230,000 just by it sitting there and just by people, if they pass away, we keep our payments in there. No more cost to us than what we had budgeted. So it's actually working well and it's getting those liabilities, what we're doing. It's not going to go away overnight, but we are getting them in the right direction. So that's that. Now we're just going to go into general fund for the last year. If we look at, so our, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I can quickly, if you can just jump back to the previous screen.
Sure.
On the pension, you're talking about them going from 30, they're down to 18. That is going down to 15. Is that correct?
Right. That is correct.
So we have 3 more years of increased payments just from them.
Yep.
Dropping the time to amortize.
Yep, that is correct.
Okay, that's important for people to know.
And this year, we are in compliance with the state. We did reach our 60% funded. So we will have to file no more report for this fiscal year because we are in compliant with both with the pension and the other post-employment benefits. So we are doing what we should be doing.
Can we ask questions as you go through this? Because I don't want to be pulling you backwards or
no, that's okay.
Once we get to the end of it.
Sure.
So the amount we paid previously was based on kind of funding a 30-year annuity or something to that.
Right.
Now they're knocking that down to 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty significant.
Yes.
It just seems to me that if we have any discretionary funds, I mean, I know we've loaned money to different departments, so on and so forth. I'm not against doing that. But where maybe we're making a 2% or a 3% return, if we took those same funds and paid down our pension liability, I would think that the return would be substantially greater. Is that true? Don't they usually around 5 or 6% or something like that?
I mean, Dave's the actuary, but we have done that in the past and it doesn't, you're throwing away money because it is one day in time. It fluctuates so much. That's why, at least by us pre-funding, we're letting that sit there at higher money. But I had in the past paid an additional $100,000 and year after year after year. It did absolutely nothing. It did absolutely nothing. So it becomes real. Right now, we have a liability. We pay it 100%. We're in total compliance. But once you start putting money, then you don't have that money for another rainy day. We do have a fund balance, but me, the conservative, I'd rather
Well, that's why I use
make
the word
money on their money than just, yeah.
that's why I use the word discretionary.
And Mike,
Yeah,
Mike, it would work if in fact the money you put in, nothing else changed. Everything continued except the fact that they're going down to 15. But they can come in as they do and change the assumptions. So you can be putting in, you look like you're getting ahead, and they come in, change one assumption for interest or whatever, and boom, knocks it all out. And now you're in arrears. I mean, you're underfunded again, even though you've put all that money in. So
yeah, it's kind of all relative though, isn't it,
Yeah.
Jim? I mean, if you didn't put it in, then you'd even be in deeper trouble, you know? That's my point. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not trying to solve it here tonight.
no, yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
believe me.
Money at
Yeah.
6% is better than money at 2% or 4%, you know,
Right.
or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just really simple. I've
And we are
had a
taking
few
that,
annuities myself.
right.
And so it just
And
seems,
we are using our money. That's what we started doing, using our money for our benefit.
okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Ann.
Okay, and now we're looking at, so all the other monies were for, we just kind of went over the funds, the different taxing entities, and now we're looking at general fund, which is our discretionary fund. So here's where our police department, all our administration, so this is the only real discretionary fund that we have. Everything else has to be used accordingly to where the taxpayers tell us to. So really our general fund is our discretionary fund. So if we look at our general fund revenue, it's almost $6 million, most of which comes from property taxes, which is about 3.7 million. And this is, like I said, used to do our police department and all our administration. We have state share revenue, which we live off, is 976,000. And then we have a little bit in interest. And then we have license and permits, which are the building department and some other things. And then we have other revenue, which is our administrative cost to each other. There's not a lot of revenue categories. Like we just can't raise money. I mean, our big thing is our taxes. So if we look at state shared revenue, that has actually been doing better. So we've been, no, this is our tax revenue. So as we saw in 2013, we saw it started coming up, right? So it came up about a little over $140,000, or it was about $80,000 last year. So it is helping. It's not huge, but it is helping to maintain operations. Here's our state share revenue. So state share revenue has going up slightly. Last year it went down a little bit. And now the state said that we will get a 2% increase. So that will help. It just helps. It helps the situation. If we look at expenditures, you can see of the $5.9 million of expenditures, 3.560 is the police department. So the police department take up 60% of the expenditures of general fund.
Where's fire on this? I didn't see a fire
is-
category.
Because they're not in general fund, they're dedicated millages for the fire department. So we talked
Oh, okay.
literally, but we didn't go into them all. We talked about their fund balance, but general fund is just general fund. General fund is the big, everyone's looking at the picture, the big picture. of what
So
one is.
their pensions, I'm sorry, their healthcare, you mentioned as an increase in cost of operation for the fire department. Does that come out of the fire department millage, or does that come out of the general fund?
All the fire department millage. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does-
Fire
fire doesn't-
department doesn't get any general fund money.
Okay.
It's all within itself.
Yeah. So it's.
Thanks, Ann.
Yep, you're welcome. So it's police, take up this, administration, obviously grounds and maintenance of the different facilities. And then the community and the community development, 312, communication. So these are all our administrative places with the police that take up the general fund. If we look in a chart of that, we can see in 2017, because you're going to go, okay, what's the bottom line, right? What's everyone looking at? So in 2017, the general fund had a loss of 252. In the last couple of years, 2018, it made 24,000. It made 15,000. It made 12,000. It made 67,000. So you can see that the general fund, which is our major operating discretionary fund, it takes care of, runs the township, is basically at a break even. We are basically maintaining our revenues less expenditures. We're definitely not taking any more in, and so we are basically keeping up with what needs to get done without raising taxes, because we showed you that we weren't raising taxes, we weren't raising millages. Taxable value was raising because the state says it can raise by so much. But all in all, we have been operating within our means, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So, and then we talked about, Mike, you were talking about fund balance. So the fund balance right now is at $2.5 million, which is about, what is it, about 42% of expenditures. So industry average is between 15 and 25%. So we are financially doing okay. It has been like that for a while. We do have money available for a rainy day, or when situations that happen out of our control, we can't go back to the taxpayers. So that cushion is available, just like you have a cushion in your savings account. It's nice to have that cushion to not have to go beg the taxpayers because something comes out that it's, and that's basically what it is. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, having a cushion is important.
Right. It's not extraordinary. It's
no, but if it starts to get, comfortable, then, your returns on that money sitting in those funds is next to nothing.
Right.
If we could reduce our liabilities, it would, be helpful.
Right. And that's why we started pre-funding them. So basically I'll fund them in April, I'll let the money sit there, and then I'll wind them down. So it's just gaining interest, and that just becomes part of our asset. And then last is just a graph of our revenue expenditures. You can see that they pretty much have been right in line, and then our fund balance. So up and down. So it's basically, you can see in the last couple of years, it's pretty much maintained itself. So other than that, do you have any questions? Like I said, Mike's here too. If you have any questions for him, he's available as well.
So I have a question. So unqualified opinion, right? Good. We've had a number of those in a year, right? No material issues. Are there any significant recommendations from the audit that don't reach the level of being material, but significant, or the highest of the lowest that don't broach that level?
Right.
Is there anything that to share with us as fiduciaries that we need to change, or there may not be? I'm obviously they're not material, but they're
right.
It happens at every audit. There's I've never been through one where there wasn't some comments, and I was just
there are in the back. One was well, I think there were 3 comments. If I right. Go over, one was that with our tax collections. So I usually wait to get the final word from Wayne County, which kind of puts us behind because I'm party of one doing most of it. So that was one of them. So we wait to reconcile with the county instead of just posting our numbers. And I like to get to the penny, I guess. That's just me. Another one was, I've always believed that this is the first time that it's actually come up. So I've always believed that our budget is a working document, is a tool. I don't necessarily believe in adjusting the budget because sometimes it is what it is, and it helps people understand that what budget versus actual. So many communities at the end of the day will adjust their budget so that it equals their overs and aboves. And I just never did that. And this is the first year that they actually mentioned it. And so we can do that. And another one is, I guess I'm old school and I have cash balances because I guess over the 25 years here, I have a separate account for every separate millage that exists so that people don't get that impression that you're commingling funds. And I guess the new way is to pool all your cash together. And
How's that? More higher rate of return or something because you got a bigger
not
balance?
necessarily, it's less work apparently, but I don't believe it. So like I said, I'm old school and I don't want people to ever think I am using the DPW money for other operations. And it's been critical around here that people always wanted those separate bank accounts. I can pull out a bank account every day and I can pull it to ledger and say, here you go. There's no commingling, no.
Takes you time probably when the questions.
It takes a little bit of time to reconcile, but yeah. I just feel sometimes that we get so many transactions now that are online as you're hunting down. I can't imagine it all being in one account, trying to hunt down why this stuff comes in, because a lot of stuff is being electronic and you're hunting down to where the revenue's coming in. So to me, it creates work, but maybe when I'm gone, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get
And you know, that was simply an efficiency comment.
Right.
A lot of cities governments are doing one cash
Those were-
account. That way you don't have to do 20 bank reconciliations.
Right.
And so those were just suggestions, not things that had to be done.
Right. There were no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So these are just comments that we see, and you know, we see what some other townships and cities are doing, and we just want to let you know what we think best practices are. Doesn't mean you have to follow them. There's nothing wrong with doing those.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. I just have one other question, and Jim, you and Dave and I had this conversation a while back. You know, I had some concerns about our overtime practices, and while we're, you know, I believe that's Mike. Is that you talking, Mike, in the background? From Yo.
Yes, you can't see me yet. That's me.
Do you guys look at any of that stuff? Long time no talk, by the way. Do you look at any of that, like some of our policies and procedures around the distribution of overtime and things like that?
We do. You know, we don't get too into that. You know, we'll do testing and things of that nature, but we don't really look at that, how much overtime that you're paying. We're looking more for approvals, and when we look at like controls and things, we do walkthroughs. And so we see you're following your policies, but we don't really, you know, lend our opinion on whether that we feel that you have enough.
You don't assess the policies. You just make sure we're following them, whatever they are.
Right, exactly. But I mean, we don't really get into the fact of if you're paid too, you know, if we think, you know, people in the assessor's office are working 45 hours, they only need to be working 40. That would be a separate study you would have to get done.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Joe?
And I was wondering a few years back, this question is regarding the cell towers. Let me ask the first one. What is the total amount that the township gets in on their fees, rental, whatever you want to call it, from the cell towers that are on our property? And I remember a few years back that they wanted a one-time payout to us, so they didn't have to pay the rental fees or whatever you call them. Is the township, or have you guys entertained that, or is that off the board? And what is the total amount that we take in each year from all of the cell towers that we have?
We take in about 98,000 that we split up between the farm and the police and fire department. We still get offers. Jeff Forrester is putting those together. He's looking at them, and it's maybe coming to a serious decision by the township board. So he's still putting them all together and trying to get the best offers that he can before he sits down with you guys. But it's constant. It still is constant, and they're still looking at tower buyout.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hey, and isn't there a local cable fee stream of revenue as well?
There is, yep, and that's part of the general fund. And then the communications uses some of it, but most of it is just for general fund purposes. And that's about, about 250.
250.
About 250.
Okay.
Yeah, 250,000 from all three providers.
And about 37,000 of it is used for our communications expenditures?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anything else? Anything else from Mike or from Ann?
Just great job,
I think, you
Dan.
know,
Thanks for
Ann does-
answering all these questions.
No
Ann does a
problem.
nice job. And so,
Thanks.
Again, I really would appreciate if you put this version up front next time you send that out.
I
I
would.
think you told Dave and you didn't tell me. He didn't seem to be as stressed when I called him.
May I ask the finance director a question, please?
Sure.
Thank you. You said that you have tower fees. How often do you renegotiate these?
Everyone was different. I mean, the fees have been around for as long as I have been around. They negotiate them as their terms come due. Like I said, we do have.
Are they all of them fixed?
No, they all have inflation factors. They all go on. That's why it got very complicated. And we turned it over to Jeff Forrester, who is our attorney for this area, because it got out of our knowledge. We just didn't know what was going on. So he's a specialist in that area.
Just public information. Is it a CPI plus 3.5 or whatever?
They were different from everything. There was 5. It was all over the board. And this, like I said, these contracts were done 30 years ago, 25 years ago, since I've been here.
I think we should consider charging whatever the upgrade is they charge the residents of the island, plus CPI plus 3.5 commercial CPI.
But when the contracts come up again for negotiation, those are the things that'll be taken into consideration.
And when will that be? Do you have an agenda? Do you have a schedule of negotiations?
He's working on them now. I mean, I don't have that full information with me right now, but he is working on them and he's looking at them.
And then as far as the tower, the $250,000, is that a fixed or is that a moving?
No, that runs with people's, how much people are buying from AT&T, from the different providers. So we get a different amount from every provider based on sales.
Well, I think that we should, Mr. Bundy, I think we should really consider tagging Comcast especially for their increase that they hit on the residents of this island, and then hit them plus, because we're entitled to the same percentage that they take in for the residents, because without the residents, they wouldn't be doing this. When they first came on board on the island, they promised, retaining and keeping these prices down. I don't think they kept that promise past the second year. So I don't know, Ms. Finance Director, I think, Ms. Nasiak, I think maybe you should carry that message forward.
We get a percentage of revenue. Yes, we do.
I think PEG fees are actually set by the state, so I don't know that there's a negotiation as part of that.
Well, there's Comcast is set by the state, but I don't think there's a restriction on what Grosse Ile feels like charging, right? Eric?
I don't believe we have the opportunity to negotiate PEG fees. I believe those are set by the state legislature.
Well, can someone follow up on that? Legal counsel, can they follow up on that?
We can make a call and find out about that. But I think Derek is correct. You'd be surprised how much the state tells us this is what you're going to get. And this, I believe, is certainly an area that a lot of it is being taken out of the local community's hands, and they're just being told, here's what you will get, period. So, but we will, John, we'll follow up and double check on that and get you something.
Well, the Comcast has no mercy on us.
Well, that's what I've heard.
I would just point out as a point of order, if Mr. Sabat's going to make public comments, he should state his name and address so residents know.
My apologies. John Sabat, 27197 West River Road. Thank you for reminding me.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And I just have one other question. The unfunded liabilities. Do you know how we compare to other like peer townships or other downriver similarly sized and funded communities, just to see where we stack up with our neighbors?
I haven't done an exact thing. We can get that. It's actually on the Munitrex. If you look on my thing, we want to compare other communities, I mean, 70% average, so we're probably a little below, but
oh, it's in your larger
look at
portion of the presentation.
yeah, we can definitely take a look at that.
Okay, I'll see if I can dig it up on my own before I bug you.
Yeah, it's try the Munitrex and compare communities with those liability. We should be able to see them.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Anyone else on the board? If not, Mike and Ann, thank you very much. And I would suggest for any of the board members, you know, as you leave the meeting tonight, and of course, that's all you're going to be thinking of is Ann's presentation. You come up with more questions, please give her a call and get your questions answered. All right, thanks, Ann. Okay, next, public comment. And again, we're just trying something new. This is what we talked about. The first public comment, instead of being open to anything, is 3 minutes on agenda items. State your name and where you live, and we will go from there. Brian, I will turn it to you, sir.
Okay, and then we're going to start with Kathy Walker.
Kathy Walker.
Hi guys, 26051 Thorpe Court. I had my hand up to talk about Ann's thing, and nobody called on me. And like Mr. Sabat spoke, I wanted to speak on what she was talking about. Can we do that, or is that?
You can make a comment. Yes, that Ann jumped the gun there. I don't know if she knew who was asking the question, and she allowed that. I was not going to stop Mr. Sabat, but it was not open for that presentation. But you can certainly make a comment, or if you want to ask a question, we'll just get back to you with the answer.
Now, my comment is, now that you show the last couple of years you have a profit in general fund, isn't it attributable because they removed the Communication Commission and it has not been reinstated yet? Because they were getting at that, before we were getting 40% of that. Mr. Loftus was taking money and putting it to cover things. So that's why you have a profit now in general fund. It's from the Communication Commission. And also for Mr. Sabat, just to let him know, there was an AT&T law in the state of Michigan, and basically they don't even have to pay us any fees anymore, but they're doing it. And Ted Fournier, your former communication manager, said we were just lucky we were getting anything. We didn't have any rights because of this AT&T law, and Derek was right that it's really out of our hands. And my only comment now on the agenda item is, I'm kind of wondering why suddenly you guys want to go out for to look for other talent. You didn't do it for the township manager. You didn't do it before for the previous police chief, and now suddenly you are. Personally, I don't think it's good form. I would wait to see how Ken's doing and then move forward. I just think it's really bad form. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, any other public comments?
I have one.
Sabat.
John Sabat, may I speak or no?
Yes, you're up, John.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for correcting me on that AT&T. With regards to the police matter, I came on late on the meeting. I forgot, I just didn't know it was earlier. Mr. Bundy, what did you mean by this was a police commission posting?
I'm sorry?
You said it was a pre-police commission posting.
No, I said the police commission wasn't going to be taken out of this, and we weren't bypassing. This isn't bypassing the commission. The commission's purpose is to make a recommendation to us. All this item that Mr. Bletcher wanted to add was for the posting of the job. That's all it was, is the posting of the job. There's no interview involved here. He's not doing an interview. He's not doing a hiring. He's not doing anything. It's simply posting the job. That's all it is.
There's a pre-interview process when you post and people inquire. So then you might proceed to do interviews, correct? So I think what Ms. Kathy said and what everybody said at the police commission meeting and others, I think we have other bigger fish to fry, like the bridge, and stop wasting our energy and revenue and your time, Mr. Bundy, and your board members' time trying to chase a wildcat here. We already have the talent we need here. This township doesn't need an outside police chief. We already have one. You had two. One decided to retire for personal reasons, whatever they may be. We respect that. And like Ms. Kathy said, Mr. Palin deserves the opportunity. He was 5-0. If you didn't value your commission's ability to make decisions, then you shouldn't have them, or vice versa. Maybe the board members, if they don't have the experience, they should leave it to the commission. So, you know, what you're really doing is you are doing a post situation when the police commission did it first. Why didn't you post first the proper method and then have the police commission review the posting entries? But this is not really the proper way of doing it, and it should be really voided out, this whole thing about posting. You're wasting money, energy, time, and like Ms. Kathy said, let's see what happens with Mr. Palin, and let's go forward. He deserves it. You're not going to find any better talent if you put 4 guys together. He's a package of 1, and you're trying to get a package of 3 or 4 to match his abilities. You know, God help him. He's coming through with a lot of class, and we're just going to have to wait. So all I want to say is give him a break. Let's make it happen. That's all I wanted to say about the police commission thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sabat.
Okay, do we have any other public comment tonight? Mr. iPhone.
Mr. iPhone here, Bob Z. Is the last vote. Wow. I support what Mr. Sabat was saying, and many other people on this island have. Going to the outside with all the talent that we have within our own department. And as an example, Doug Carmack has been working closely with Mr. Hardin for 1 month, 2 months. Mr. Hardin isn't going to leave for another 40, 45 days. So Mr. Carmack is going to have a good 90 days of experience working directly with our acting chief right now. So there's talent within right there. In addition to Mr. Palin, who has been unanimously selected for the position, posting to the outside right now, in my opinion, is a bad move. We have more than enough talent within their own police department. Let's not insult them. Let's take advantage of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, any other public? Greg Karmazin.
Okay. Greg Karmazin, resident Clinton Township, taxpayer, homeowner, 212228 East River. A couple comments. First of all, on the bridge engineer, at the last township board meeting, I made some comments about that. And I think since then, I've heard that the county has not made any progress on a date for having a plan on the repairing of the 5 piers. And I think that it's critically important that we do have some independent analysis and advice to understand not only those 5 piers and how they're going to be replaced or repaired, but also the long-term maintenance plan or replacement plan for the bridge. And we just don't have that kind of information expertise within the township staff and the township board. And I think having an outside consultant to advise the township is critically important. On the police commission, in the hiring of the police chief, I've done a fair amount of research on this, and I've attended the police commission meetings. And having talked to the police commission several occasions at their open board meetings, open meetings, when we've asked them, citizens, including myself, have asked them why wasn't their recommendation taken up by the township board over the last 8 months, and quite frankly, they're mystified as to why the township board didn't act on their recommendation. And this reasoning that I hear, that there was a budget issue and then there was some other issue that came up supposedly, it's never been clearly explained to the community. And I think it's incumbent on the township board to explain why you've never taken up the police commission's recommendation and had an up or down vote on that recommendation, so that they could then make another recommendation if you don't like that recommendation. And now what we're seeing is the board taking up a process that looks like it's going to bypass the police commission. And I think that's a violation of the township's ordinances, the 6710. And, as a number of residents have said, citizens have said, we've got a great recommendation from the police commission, and why can't the board first vote on that before considering any other alternative? That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Karmazan.
Okay, do we have any other public comment tonight? Are we taking somebody for a second time? It's more procedural than anything here, Jim.
Let's let Mr. Zalasko speak.
Okay, go ahead, Bob.
And this is an excellent second talk.
You're on mute.
He's on mute.
Geez, and I gave you that big thanks too, Tim. Just
go ahead, Bob.
Quick comment on the RFQ, which is also in your discussion there. Over the years, I've interfaced with many RFQs. They don't always come back in a positive fashion on the first time. They usually require a little bit of work. They're like a living document. You get out of them what you put into them. I would highly recommend that maybe we expand our scope a little bit, take another look at that, and let's continue that RFQ. I think it's very important. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, do we have any other public comment tonight? I am not seeing any.
Hearing none, we will move on to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Budney. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent agenda 21-048, which includes the following: minutes of the October 11th, 2021 regular board meeting, check registers dated through October 22nd, 2021, a restoration services bid award, zoning board of appeals chairman appointment, interim police chief Brent Hardin retirement, confidential secretary Ruth Kaledas retirement, and airport maintenance to Gary Jones retirement.
Support. Thank you. Any discussion on any of the items?
I have a question.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So this would be a curious thing to do, but could the township actually refuse to allow Deputy Chief Hardin to retire? Given that I work for the federal government where they can actually do that, but if, you know, with his agreement or something of that nature, would that be possible?
To my knowledge, and I'm going to ask Tom, so get ready, Tom. To my knowledge, we could turn down his request to retire. I don't think we can actually stop him from retiring. Tom?
Okay.
Authority? Am I correct on that? Tom, you're on mute. You're on mute, Tom. There you go.
That's correct. You could turn down his retirement, but you can't stop him from essentially
not coming
quitting.
to work anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And quitting. To use.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it would have to be.
I don't like using that term, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. I wasn't gonna motion.
You were gonna
Yeah,
motion.
I know you're probably watching Deputy Chief Hardin. I wasn't gonna motion that. But.
All right. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Joe?
Yes, Jim, if I could just say, this is for both. I'm going to do it together for Brent and Ruth. This has obviously been, this year has been a wild ride for the police department. And as I stated at the police commission meeting, most people say, I hope you have a happy retirement for both of them. I absolutely want to wish them a happy and a healthy retirement. And thank you for everything that they've done.
Thank you, Joe.
Just,
and Mike.
Yeah, we had a really good, productive police commission meeting last week. And, a lot of it was a lot of well-deserved accolades thrown to Brent and Ruth for their service. And I would just like to thank both of them on behalf of the entire community for all their contributions over the decades, because they have been significant and they are well appreciated, and wish them all the best in the next chapter of their lives. So.
Very good. Thank you, Mike.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may really quick, is that okay?
Sure, Derek, go ahead.
There's already been comments made about Brent and Ruth, and obviously I agree 100% with both of those. I wanted to talk a little bit about Mr. Jones. He's worked for the township, both in the capacity as a DPW employee, an airport employee, and then also a volunteer fireman. Gary possesses a lot of skills that were very beneficial to the township over his years of service. So wish him a happy retirement, much deserved retirement. Thank you.
Thank you. Uda, go ahead. Uda.
Unmute.
Usually consent agenda items are on consent agenda
right.
to keep it quick, but we've gone this deep in.
Yep. I was gonna actually wait until after we voted on the consent agenda to make the congratulations, but we're doing this and that's fine.
Okay. So
go ahead.
Would you like to read the resolutions that you have put
I am not, only because it's the same for each of them other than their name. So I think what people are saying is much more poignant rather than rehashing 3 times the same verbiage.
Well, then I guess I would like to say I would say no to all 3 of them, but I know that doesn't make a difference. They have worked very hard on behalf of the township. They have taken, Brent, Ruth, and Gary have taken the township to heart, and they have put the township ahead of their personal interests and agendas. They have served the people that they believed they were meant to serve. I know Gary was not always beloved, but he worked hard to support his union coworkers, and he worked very hard at the airport to make sure that things ran properly on the ground crew there. Brent and Ruth, you will be sorely missed. If I could keep you on board, I would, but I wish you both also a very happy retirement.
Thank you, Uda. Anything else? Not hearing anything. We have a motion for approval of consent agenda 21-048, which includes the minutes of the October 11th, 2021 regular meeting, check register dated through October 22nd, 2021, restoration service bid award, which is for the house that has been donated to us to benefit the
Animal shelter.
Animal shelter. Thank you. We have zoning board of appeals chairman appointment, and that's Gary Bailey. Interim police chief Brent Hardin's retirement, confidential secretary Ruth Kaledas retirement, and airport maintenance to Gary Jones retirement. So I will begin with Ms. O'Connor for approval of the consent agenda.
Aye.
Joe Porcerelli.
Aye.
Mike Jarecki.
Aye.
Jameson Yeager.
Aye.
Carl Bletcher.
Aye.
David Nadeau.
Aye.
And I vote aye. The consent agenda is approved. And I would just like to say, again, what everybody else has said about the three individuals retiring. Police Chief Hardin has 25 years of service. Ruth Kaledas has 26 years of service, and Gary Jones has 23 years of service. That's a lot of service to this community. I absolutely wish them all the very best in retirement, and thank you so much for what you have provided to this community in your service. Moving on, action items. The first action item that we added was for the Bridge Engineer RFP. So Mike, I will turn that over to you to make the motion.
Okay. A motion to redo the bridge RFQ, to modify it, and to approve that we send it out covering a larger geographic area so that it has a better chance of success. That's my motion. Now, can I give background?
Not yet.
Okay.
Support.
Okay, we got the support. Now you can give the background.
All righty. So, you know, I went back and I looked at the June 12th board meeting and the this discussion about going out and hiring a doing an RFQ and looking to hire a bridge engineer. And it was pretty educational. I mean, certainly I shared all my thoughts on why we needed to do it. We had a unanimous vote in support of sending it out. Everybody contributed to that discussion. I even learned some stuff from Carl. I was really surprised of his knowledge regarding the piers and how they were structured, and the depth in which it went into the ground and eventually the bedrock with the newer ones. And, I thought we made a really good decision, and I'm a little baffled as to why we're having this discussion tonight, because it's very common, in my past career, we would do hundreds of RFPs because we built things, and we were always looking for professionals and so on and so forth. And it's very common, if the first one doesn't work, you modify it a little bit. You may change the area that you send it out to and include more firms. I mean, there's 39 of these firms. I don't know, Derek, how many that I looked up briefly on the internet. That there's over 33,000 of these bridges, swing span bridges around. And I'm sure there's some folks that don't have a conflict with Wayne County. So why we don't, take a couple hours to modify this thing and resend it out is beyond me, because there seems to be pretty strong support for it. But just to remind everyone, the oldest piers are 148 years old. They're being worked on. They're timber with rocks and all that. Carl, I mean, you did a pretty good job explaining it and scaring me about them. How long those babies going to last, I don't know. The other ones that are 90 years old, they go down to bedrock. They're pretty good, but they haven't been inspected since November of 2020. You've asked that question to the MDOT engineer in the October meeting, and so we really have no idea how they are now. They were fair to poor back then, and I'm certain that they haven't gotten any better in that Trenton Channel current, and all the debris hitting them and just the water at a pretty rapid pace. So we all know that what happened in 2006 when Wayne County presented to us their plans to fix the bridge. The fix was going to last 30 years. It only lasted 10. Okay. And here we go again. Wayne County, I think to the best of their ability, they're giving a recommendation, although I have not heard the engineers say 20 to 30 years. Okay. But we've heard high-level administrators say that that's how long it's going to last if they fix the 6 piers. We know about infrastructure money coming down the pike, and we know that there is a very high probability that these 5 remaining piers are not going to last without major renovation 30 years. And but I'm a lay person. Everybody sitting here is pretty much a lay person. I know one engineer that that's on here tonight would agree with everything that I'm saying in terms of the concern. But I think we need to go out and do this. I mean, since we've been having these discussions, I ran into a lot of residents and mainly young family, not like people sitting on this board, who were raising children, and some of them had to pull their kids out of sports because they couldn't afford to go across the pay bridge. And I think that's just a horrible situation. And I just think as fiduciaries, we got a great responsibility not to let that bridge break again for an extended period of time. And with everything going on, we know that Wayne County has roughly, I think the number's 46 bridges that are in poor to critical condition. And one, if the only documented longevity of these repairs for this bridge is 30 years, and they get their allotments of funds, and the number on our bridge is it's going to last 30 years, and they got these other 40 poor to critical bridges, where are we going to be in the pecking order when it comes to doling out that money to make repairs? And I think there's a once in a lifetime well, hopefully there'll be more, but it feels like once in a lifetime opportunity with the infrastructure package coming down that, you know, that we may be able to latch on to some of that money or get the county to prioritize it, or maybe even the state to, you know, apply a little pressure. And, you know, all of our congressional folks that represent the state of Michigan, this is a serious, very serious issue. You know, I failed to mention that Wayne County has 1,400 miles of roads and 58% of them are in poor condition, you know, in addition to the bridges. So all we want to do, the main thing that really needs to be done is really have another professional opinion that states how long they think that bridge is going to last without more major repairs, most likely to the 5 remaining piers that haven't been touched, that are in very poor condition, that are 90 years old. Really, how long are they going to last before we need to throw serious money at it? Someone has to, or before they break. And we're left in another situation where the bridge is down for a year. And the other thing you have to realize too, you know, this is a critical fracture bridge. We all know what that, or most of us know what that means based upon how many discussions we've had. But if one of those piers goes down, it can take multiple piers down with it. And that could be the least of our problems. People could get hurt. You know, people could get killed. It's happened. So I don't know why we wouldn't, you know, make an effort to send this out. It's probably less than a day's work to do it. I'd be more than happy, Derek, to sit down with you and go through it, cast our net a little wider, and you know, protect the residents, all the residents of Grosseal, but the ones that really are suffering the most because of this. I mean, heck, if I was to go back 30 years in time, this would be a really serious problem. I had 3 boys in sports, and we were running them everywhere, you know, and you know, it's not a fun conversation when people approach you about this. And I've had probably 3 families that I've spoken to. And I don't know if any of you have heard the same things, but I think we have an obligation to trouble ourselves a little bit more, to send this out, try to get a professional assessment so we can just say, not to rub it in anybody's face or be confrontational about it, but just to say, hey, look it, you're saying 30 years. We have an engineer that says 15 or 10 or 5 on this one pier of the 5 piers based on the inspections that are going to start taking place. Jim, you know, I think you've done a fabulous job at these meetings. You know, we're talking to these folks all the time. You know, in the last meeting, they kind of backed off a little bit on the plan to fix those, or the plan to give you a plan on the 5 remaining piers. I don't know if you talked to Derek about it. I mean,
I did.
I was a little troubled by that, because if we don't, you know, if we're going to have a plan in 60 days and you make a commitment, man, live up to it, you know. But once you start falling off even your commitment to give us a plan, that's even more concerning, you know. And again, nobody's been confrontational. I know Wayne County has a lot more issues they have to address than they got money to address them with. And all we want is a professional opinion. I think as fiduciaries for this township, we owe it to the residents to go out there and hire a bridge engineer to at least look at the inspections. We can reduce the scope of this RFP. I was the first one to compliment Derek on it. I thought it was one of the best, you know, RFPs I've seen in a while. That was maybe too good, because maybe it scared some of these engineering firms thinking we don't have the resource to do all this stuff. So we can whittle it down a little bit, you know, but let's get the first, you know, review of the inspection after construction completion. And then, you know, maybe the inspections after that. And, you know, again, not approach Wayne County and all the MDOT professionals with just layperson opinion. We need to be able to talk to our, Congress folks and everybody else that can impact this issue with professional opinion, because we're not that, and we don't have the standing. And when it comes to our opinion versus an engineer's opinion that works for Wayne County or somewhere else, we're going to lose that battle every time. So, any questions,
Mike? Yeah, how much was the RFQ? It's 25,000, right?
Well, I mean, we've thrown that number out there. Derek thought that was a good money number when we first talked about it, but it's really, you could whittle it down. They probably give you an hourly rate, and you say, how many hours it's going to take to review this inspection, and what do you think? And maybe not just review this one, but see how it compares to the one done a year ago, and how much more deterioration has there been, and extrapolate forward in terms of putting an estimate on, how long before we have major problems. So, I mean, we can whittle it down however much we want, because typically they do it on an hourly basis.
So I guess my point is that it doesn't seem like it's going to cost a significant sum of money. Our tax revenue looks like it's at an all-time high. We've got everything paid for according to a presentation we saw an hour ago. And the bridge problem is the most significant problem. I mean, I haven't lived here as long as you guys, but it's the most significant problem I've ever faced here. My family spent at least $3,000 crossing the bridge. I mean, you could probably take 6 or 7 residents, and their cost of living on the island this year probably equals the money we'd spend on hiring a bridge engineer. And I've been stuck at the bridge. I'm sure almost everybody sitting on this board tonight's been stuck before, right? Boat came through, air compressor fails, the bridge won't lock back into place. So we really need to be able to make the argument to our federal and state officials that we need a full replacement or retrograde of the Parkway Bridge. I mean, we do. And if it costs us $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, I think 90% of residents would be like, yeah, go spend that money. It's such an important issue that we're facing right now. And I certainly support reposting it. I hope the other board members do as well.
Thanks, Jameson. Other comments? Ms. O'Connor.
Well, I appreciate the concerns these gentlemen have about the condition of the bridge and outlining again how fragile everything is. But at the same time, an RFQ that we put out that covered the basis of what we were looking to get and for what we were able to pay for it, the fact that we got no reputable engineering firms within a fair distance of Grosse Ile and Wayne County, I think speaks loud and clear. And I think, Mike, you can go as far afield as you like to find some willing engineer to give us what we want for $25,000. But you also need to ask yourself, what kind of credibility will that opinion have with the state of Michigan, with MDOT? We may find someone who's willing to give us what we want, but will it really serve the purpose of what it needs to do? And I think our strongest case here is to stay vigilant with the bridge and with the Wayne County, and to understand what these engineering firms basically told us is that we don't have ownership of this bridge. This is, we depend on it, yes, but we don't have ownership of it. And if we want to have these kind of estimates, we need to work with the county that has probably one of the best bridge engineers in the country working on it right now, to give us the information that needs to come out, and not go looking for some far afield engineering firm that's willing to forego work with the county in order to give the township an opinion that it wants to get.
Well, if I can respond to that, I do appreciate your comments. I would say that everybody that is involved, there's 33,000 of these bridges across the country. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of qualified engineers. I think if you read those responses, there was one person that kind of shared your view, and the rest of them just simply had a conflict. And I think I respectfully disagree with your logic. I don't think it makes sense. I think there's too big of a burden of responsibility on us representing the citizens of Groseal to have a separate professional opinion. I think it'd be remiss on our part if we didn't for something that is as important as this. But I do, appreciate your thoughts on it. I just disagree. I think this is far too important, and again, they all had conflicts of interest. It wasn't that they said they didn't want to do it or whatever. We basically said as a condition of being considered for this RFP, you cannot do work for Wayne County because, Wayne County is a much bigger paycheck than Groseal. And so they're not going to do it for that reason, period. And, when even here in the Detroit area, when we hired professionals in my years, and I've hired hundreds of them through the RFP process, we don't really care where they come from. We look at their experience. They have, professional distinctions and so on and so forth. And they specialize and they have experience, and it can be done remotely. I just wouldn't want, if this thing breaks down 5 years from now, I just don't want to be on your side of the argument. That's all. I think it's pretty predictable. It's happened before. Last time it was a 30-year fix. This time's a 30-year fix. The only difference is this time we got 5 piers that aren't being addressed. And it concerns me. And it concerns me for the residents of Groseal, especially those families that can least afford it. Not only is it costing the residents of Groseal, it's costing the school system, because a lot of the families that would send their schools to Groseal, the school of choice, can't afford it. They just can't afford it, Uta. So I understand what you're saying, but I think we need to act responsibly here. And I think to act responsibly, we have to get a professional opinion, our own professional opinion.
Other comments? Joe?
Yes, sir, Jim. Thank you. I just wanted to say at first, and when I do my research, who I go to. So once I found out that there were no takers on this from engineering firms due to the reasons that Mike spoke, I did make a phone call to an owner of an engineering company, firm, whatever you want to call it, here in Southeast Michigan. And I was informed that RFQs and RFPs don't go through all the time. And he says it is common that they have to do it, a couple times or change the scope or some things that are in it. So I got that first off. Then I looked at that when we voted on this, it was a 7-0. Now, I don't mean to be funny, but we don't vote 7-0 on this board other than the consent agendas and a couple other things. I mean, that's just fact. I'm not trying to be facetious, Jim, at all. That's just a fact, and you're even laughing. So when I find out that we vote 7-0 for this item or initiative or whatever you'd like to call it, action item, I just believe that we're not doing it for ourselves. We're doing it for the people of Groseal. We can't quit. If we voted 7-0, we must continue. Now, if this gentleman would have told me, Joe, it's not common that you don't put it out a second time, or you just never put it out a second time, or it's not the practices and standards of engineering world to put it out a second time, I may have had a different opinion. But because this happens in the real world, and because we voted 7-0, I think we would be neglectful not to do what we can for the people. And I get it, it's $25,000 or up to. And you saw what our fund balance is at, which is the slush fund, if you want to call it emergency fund, our bank account, whatever it is you'd like to call it. We obviously have the 25,000 isn't going to hurt Groseal Township, but I just think that we are neglectful. Mike said it. If something goes wrong, I do not want to be on the other side of the argument because I know some are going to be voting no for this. I don't want to be on that side of the argument. I can't give up. I never given up in my job. If I didn't get it the first time, man, I figured it out and it never happened twice. So anyway, that's just what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Okay, Joe. Anyone else? Mr. Bletcher.
I'd be looking for to support this specifically with the idea that we have consideration for making the bridge longer lasting with an examination of weight limits, a recommendation on that, speed going across the bridge from an engineer that Mike can find, as well as moving the gates back to the shoreline, if you will, because when people are waiting for boats to pass and waiting for traffic to clear, many of them are running their engines. And that causes residents, which does damage to the bridge. I'd like to have Mike, an engineer, make specific recommendations on how we can make those things change so that they don't damage the bridge and extend the longevity. Second thing is that I'm very, very concerned that we find, and Mike, this is going to be something you're going to be digging into, but we find an engineer that has knowledge equal to or superior than what Brennan has. I've said before, I don't really, and again, I'm not going to pick on MIT or on Michigan Tech or Northern, but I don't want to consider an engineer who just graduated from engineering school last semester and now has $25,000 to pay off their student loans that they didn't have last week. What I'm looking for is somebody that can make a bona fide recommendation regarding placement of the gates, speed limits, and weight limits that make sense. And we can make a recommendation to Wayne County. And the second thing is that when they examine this, they exhibit the skills necessarily commensurate with your goals, and it be somebody that knows what they're doing as opposed to somebody that works on roads or on buildings or aqueducts or pipelines. I think it's incumbent upon us not only to spend the money well, but to make sure that we are getting something of value for what we have.
Yeah, 2 points, Carl, and really appreciate your comments. I think it's one of these rare occasions where I think you and I are in complete agreement.
It is frightening.
So it's painful.
Carl.
First beer is on me, Mike.
I just wanted to make a couple points if I could finish. One, if you read the RFP, I mean, we not only want people that are bridge engineers, but we want bridge engineers with swing bridge experience. Okay, so like I said, Derek, I think, did a fine job. He really did an outstanding job on this. And then the second thing, and we've had this conversation numerous times at the police commission, along the lines of what can we do to make that bridge last longer, right? Those repairs last longer. If you look, if we've learned nothing from Mr. Smolt, there's one thing for sure we've learned is when those big trucks go over, they go slow because they got an escort in front of them, forcing them to go slow. And, you know, that helps reduce the damage to the bridge. It's like someone hitting you with a sledgehammer going 2 miles an hour, or somebody hitting you with one going 20 miles an hour, right? Or 30. And so we have to look at ways of doing a better job of enforcing the speed limit on the bridges. I think we got to be very transparent to the construction companies and so on and so forth. That, hey, we're going to be, everyone that we know, send them a letter. We're going to be enforcing this. If you're speeding, you're going to get pulled over. And I went as far as recommending that we get portable weight stations. So if you're overweight and speeding, that's a real problem. Now we're having those discussions. I know that they've been going on for probably over a year, and so we're going to see what we can do to make that bridge last longer. And certainly, you know, asking the county. I think we've mentioned, Jim. I think we've mentioned this in the bridge meeting with Wayne County already, haven't we? That we can do more, and I think they're fairly receptive. So, as much as I hate to admit it, I think I totally agree with Carl.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes, I'm just looking. Any other comments? Go ahead, Uda.
Well, I appreciate what Carl said, and it does freak me out too that he and Mike agree, but that's not where this whole discussion started. We're looking for an engineer to look at the piers and to make a recommendation about the longevity of the piers. If we're looking for an engineer to help us make a case with the county, again, you know, I don't know what our limit is to doing any kind of security checks on a county bridge, right? Where do our rights begin? Can we, you know, how do we enforce the speed limit? How do we enforce the weights? It's a county bridge. Obviously, these are things that we not only know about because they're happening at the toll bridge, and you've been talking, I hope, to the county about these at the regular meetings. But the point of this RFQ, I understood, was to hire someone to take a look at the piers and to make a sort of assessment on, is the Brennan Company in Wayne County giving us an accurate number for the longevity of the piers? And I don't, you know, I think if you're going to go out for another RFQ, you better make damn sure that whatever you want in it is spelled out clearly what you want that engineer to do, because you're not going to get everything based on assumptions. And the county is the company, is the group, is the owner that we have to convince to make these changes. You know, if they're not going to take it from us, then they need to take it from a reputable engineer, yes. But that is our goal, is to convince the county to do what we need it to do. So, you know, if we go out for an RFQ, we better make sure we know what the deliverable is and that the engineer knows what the deliverable is, because otherwise, you know, if we have one thing in writing, but we want something else, we're going to be disappointed. And to go back to Joe, we had a 7-0 vote on going out for the RFQ because we wanted to find out who and what and when would actually apply, because we had a lot of what if, he said, she said scenarios. And without going out for an RFQ, we'd still be arguing the what ifs. And so we put out the RFQ. We all agreed we needed something called facts, something that told us this is an accurate measure of who is willing to apply for this job. And so that's why you had a 7-0 vote. If we can agree on a kind of deliverable for an expanded RFQ besides just going further afield, then, you know, you might get another 7-0 vote. But to just go further afield and say, well, we just didn't ask enough people the same question, I think is a waste of time, a waste of Derek's time, and a waste of our township's time.
I'll chime in here. Uda, you make a good point. We were going back and forth on this because that when we did vote, I think that was the second or third time it came up, and we had said no previously, and we in fact, I believe, said, okay, let's go out, let's see what the engineer says, rather than us lay people on the board arguing back and forth, is it good, is it bad? Let's go out and see what an engineer says. And what and we said pretty much what the engineers who wrote back to us, because no one put in, but some made comments, and that's exactly what we thought we would hear, including one engineer who very bluntly pointed out, you guys got no standing. I mean, you can talk till you're blue in the face, but you have no leverage, you have no standing. It is Wayne County's bridge. They are the ones that are going to fix it. They are the ones that are going to replace it. They are the ones that get to make the call. They can listen to you. They cannot listen to you. You can't force them to do anything. There's nothing legally that you can do. And this has always been my problem with this, is of what value in us spending our money would we get from it? What can we do with any information they give us other than to go back and say, well, our engineer said, and we have to remember that it is, number one, it is not Wayne County's engineers that are saying any of this. It is Wayne County's third-party engineers, Great Lakes engineers, Rennan, and another company that are giving us this information. As far as the life, until they get done, and Wayne County has said this, until they get done, nobody's going to put a life on it. Numbers have been thrown around. If everything goes right, it could be 30 years. Until it is done, and it will be Brennan, Great Lakes that are saying, putting those years on that bridge as to what the estimate will be. No one's going to tell you it's going to be 20 years guaranteed, can't go wrong. Nobody's going to tell you that. There's too many things that can happen because you're in that water with that current. You have weather, you have the way it's used, heavy machinery coming over or whatever. I don't know that Wayne County would do the same thing, put somebody at the bridge to escort the heavy trucks over so that they stay at whatever the mileage rate is. I doubt very much that they would.
We could use radar though, Jim. I mean, it's, it's no different than anything else. It's just radar. Now, the thing that would come in question. Is if you come over, if they're flying across, you can grab them. Yeah.
When they hit the road.
Yeah.
So.
I think we're kind of in violent agreement on most of this stuff. I mean,
and I come back in looking at the information that we got back from the people we did, and Derek, the companies that responded and that we got, they were not local companies, were they?
We had distributed the RFQ to engineering firms that were based from Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Ohio. Pretty much the Midwest is where the majority of these were based at. Some of them had offices in Boulder, so they're large national firms. If that answers your question.
Yeah. Okay. I still come back with what can we do with certainly somebody can sit down, read a report, and give us information. The thing is, what can we really do with that information? We're talking about dealing with Wayne County really, because we're not getting any infrastructure. Roseal's not getting any infrastructure money for bridges because we don't have any bridges, and they're not going to give it to us. What we have to do is work with Wayne County to go and partner with them and support them to get infrastructure money to replace our bridge or work on our bridge. And I see that we are doing that now. Being that they are going to have qualified and have now qualified engineers, I just do not see a big value in us spending money on on another engineer. That's me.
Well, Jim, so realistically, I mean, Great Lakes, Brent isn't doing any engineering studies that are going to be available to the public.
Right.
They use Great Lakes.
Great Lakes does their inspections.
They do their inspections. They're obviously biased because it's a big account for them. And I'm just looking for an unbiased professional engineer that's working for Grozeal, that has experience, to say, this baby's going to last 20 years. I hope they come back with the same report. Then we can all probably sleep a lot better. But, you know, if push came to shove, and, you know, typically the way this situation would work out, if there was a difference between our engineer and their engineer, they're all professionals. You know, they talk to each other. They could talk to each other. And it would be a very cordial conversation to say, you know, I don't think that's the right number because this, and this. But I think, again, as fiduciaries, we just have to have a good number on that bridge. And then we need to appeal to all those people that influence Wayne County, like the state and the federal government officials, if we have to. We've done it in the past. It's moved the needle on some things. It makes it a higher priority. I would disagree that we're totally at the mercy of Wayne County. And by the way, I think Wayne County wants to do the right thing, but two opinions are better than one. And so by no means am I suggesting that, you know, this is something that we're going to lock horns with Wayne County. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's just to say, hey, look, if we had an engineer look at it, they may go to the MDOT engineer and say, what do you think? Because you're the ones reviewing these inspections, and this is our opinion. I just think it's, when it comes to something like this bridge, that is so important to the families and the citizens of Grozeal. And for us to say that, you know, in the past, we spent a lot of money on professionals that really hasn't, you know, accomplished a lot for us. But to say that we're not willing to, you know, hire our own engineer when it's costing families, like Jameson said, you know, $3,000-$4,000 a year when this thing goes down, it's the last thing in the world they can afford. You know, it's hurting our schools. I mean, we just, as fiduciaries, I believe we have to say, we got a number. We took it the extra step. Yes, we had a problem with Wayne County back in 2007. They said it was a 30-year fix. It didn't end up being that. We kind of learned something from it. We're getting our own engineer now. We trusted they got a better process now as well. And we're going to do the right thing for Grozeal. I think if you were to ask Grozeal people, are they willing to pay, you know, $10 or whatever it's going to cost them, you know, each family, if we divided this up, I can guarantee you they'd be willing to invest into that engineering firm to get this done for us. So.
Just a second, Uda. David, did you have any? Are you raising your finger?
No. I'm ready to vote.
Okay, Uda.
Well, I just want to address one more thing that Mike brought up, and that is saying no to the RFQ redo is not saying no to the families of Grozeal. What saying no is saying, I'm not convinced that going out with a new RFQ, I'm not convinced that the engineer that we find will be able to do for the families what you think or what you're saying they're going to be able to do for the families. One engineer's estimate of the longevity of the piers is going to be as good as another engineer's estimate. And one is going to be closer to the truth than the other ultimately, maybe by 5 years or 1 year or whatever. But that doesn't serve the families of Grozeal. What will serve the families of Grozeal is knowing that their board is working with the county to address the issues of maintenance of the bridge, of keeping the speed limits down, doing the enforcement on the weights, on not letting the subject die but continuing to bring it up to the state and to the county. And I think that's what's going to serve the families of Grosse Ile much more than doing another RFQ and finding an engineer who's willing to give us a number on the life of the piers.
Yeah. And just quite frankly, I respectfully disagree with you, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Engineers, sometimes have biases. I think we owe it to ourselves to get an unbiased engineer. That's the reason why the majority of them backed out. And we've been hurt in the past by this. It's very common for RFQs, the first round, not to achieve the result that you were looking for. And quite frankly, we can improve upon it. I think we're better than that. And I agree with most of everything else you're saying, by the way. I just think it's time for belts and braces. We need to be extra conservative. This island has taken a beating on it. And, personally, it really hasn't hurt me that much other than time inconvenience. But I'm concerned by the young families, that are really, changing their lives because of this. And I've heard from a number of them. And for that reason alone, I can't vote again. I could never not support this, especially for the price.
Can I say one last thing?
Sure, Joe.
Mike, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you at the end there? Were you?
No, you didn't.
Okay. Well, I listened to a lot of different things here and going in some different directions that I wasn't agreeable to. But what about this? Derek, I know for you to redo this, to do one whole one is only about 4 or 5 hours. We got that when Derek and I talked. I talked to the owner of that engineering firm, how much time it's going to cost. For Derek to do 4 hours of work on if you want to call it a new one, a revised one, however you want to say it, what can it hurt if we're looking, because we're going to come back and vote anyway. And the people I know that are against it, I can see Uta and maybe Carl, you're not happy with this to go further, but I respect your opinion. But what would it hurt for 4 hours of work to have this come back? To have this come back to us to vote on again, and you have the right to vote on it, just like the other issues that we're dealing with here in the township. You obviously have the right to vote on it either way. But 4 to 5 hours on redoing it to see what we come back with for the people of Grosse Ile, I just think that I just can't see saying no to them. I can't, because you don't know what you're going to get. You all say, or not you all, I apologize, that wasn't correct. Some of you say, we don't know what kind of engineer, what are we going to get? But that's what we're trying to find out. And if we don't find one, then we tried. Then we absolutely tried, and it's a no. But for Derek, and I'm sorry, Derek, I know you're very busy now. You got 2 jobs, but that's your job. If he needs to do something for another 4 hours, I can't see how we can go wrong with it. I can't see, and no one will convince me otherwise. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Thank you, Jim, for the extra time.
Sure. Derek, just ballparking to go in and revise this, and we're talking about revising it down, I believe, and getting it out to, can you get it out to a wider group of people? I mean, I don't know what sites you put it on.
Yeah, we could make some revisions to the document, but I'd be a little bit concerned about getting too involved with revising it, because then you start getting away from what the intent was. If we're adding stuff to it for additional deliverables to accommodate what Carl's comments were, that should be pretty minor to do that. We can make a couple of tweaks that won't take too much time. I think the majority of where the work is going to be is just reviewing other areas to publish this that can cast that wider net, get it into other regions of the country. And then I find a lot of times with these RFQs and stuff, it's research and direct solicitation of the firms that you have interest in. And I think that's where your time is reviewing what national firms that we didn't already talk to that don't traditionally do work in this area that might have a conflict with Wayne County, and directly soliciting them. So I mean, to Joe's point, I don't think we have a ton of work here. It might not necessarily be completely with modifying the document. It's probably more solicitation and research than anything.
Okay. And one thing that needs to be clarified, when we went out for the first RFP, that was to go out to an RFP, to talk to people, see what they said, to clear up our differences that we had within the board. Also, it was not necessarily that it was an automatic hire. And this would be, as Joe pointed out, this would be the same. If we went out for an RFP, a revised RFP, we'd see what we got in, we'd look it over, and it'd still come back to the board to determine if we were going to hire anybody. So.
Yeah, because you won't know how anyone is going to vote, Joe, until it actually goes to a vote. And that's what the discussion is about. And that's what, we've already opened up some windows here to some insights of what we're looking for this document and this engineer to do, which if we hadn't had a frank discussion, we would never have gotten to this place. So, but again, you're also looking at a township manager who has quite a long list of priorities. We also want to be careful that we're not sending him out on a fool's errand where we're going to get the same result that we had before.
I understand what you're saying, Lieutenant. I just say that any engineer that we probably interview has forgotten more about what we said today than we'll ever learn. So of course they're going to know about the rest. We're not coming up with things tonight that they don't have in their minds already. I can guarantee that. That was what I.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, if it comes back with the same result, I think that answers our question.
That was my point.
We won't have to worry about a vote.
That was my point.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I meant.
Okay. Any other comment, or are we ready to vote on this? I think we're ready to vote on this. So the action item is to, and I motion to revise the RFQ and go back out for a bridge engineer. Is that a fair summarization of it?
Yes.
And I will start with Ms. O'Connor.
All right. Go for it.
Okay. Mr. Yeager.
Aye.
Mr. Porcerelli.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Nadeau.
Aye.
Mr. Bletcher.
Aye.
Mr. Jarecki.
Let me think about it.
Yeah, okay, I'll get back to you.
Aye.
And I too vote aye, that we can revise and see what we get. It will come back to us again for a vote if we get anything in the question of hire. So we will work. Derek, sorry to put you under a little more work, but
my job, no biggie.
We will do that. So the motion to redo the RFQ passes. Thank you very much. Just let me make a note here. Oh. All right, action item number 2, Mr. Bletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I move that the Groseal Township Board have the township manager post the police chief position for internal and external candidates.
Support.
Okay, motion and support. You want to just give a little summarization, Carl, or?
I do. I want to throw some numbers out here. 10,600 3.5, 23, 4, and 1. The 10,600 represents the number of residents that live on Grosse Ile. The police department, according to former Chief Duncan Murdoch, is the first responder for 95%, that is 19 out of 20 calls. Those residents depend upon the police department for not only enforcement of the laws, protection, security, investigation, detective bureau, an animal control officer, and all the duties that go with management. 3.5 represents the amount of money in millions of dollars for the police budget. Plus you throw in such things as forfeiture funds and some of the other items that the reporting responsibilities, requirements, all of the dynamics that go with making this police department safest in the state of Michigan for 11 out of the last 13 years and one of the safest in the United States. 23 represents the number of personnel in the department that the chief is responsible for. He's responsible for their safety, their training, their education. He's responsible for their promotions. He's responsible for their discipline. He is responsible that they act together as a team, and that he is responsible to see that they function well as a team, providing the services that all the citizens here have come to respect and frankly deserve. 4 represents the number of vacancies that have been created within the last month and a half. And that is with the retirement of Chief Hardin. We have a vacancy at the very top with all the work that the chief does. The second vacancy is that of the deputy chief. We do not have a deputy chief. The third represents the position of the lieutenant. And I'm going to be the first to say that Doug Carmack has done a terrific job. Doug Carmack is exceptional in his performance. He has been a tremendous asset to this township, and he's done a heck of a job. But I don't think it's fair that somebody who was recently a sergeant, who has not gone to staff and command school, has not been mentored to be a chief, has not been mentored to be a deputy chief, or mentored to be a lieutenant. He was thrown into the breach. And as much respect as I have for Doug, and it is unbounded, he has done a terrific job, but I don't think it is fair to expect that that can continue. The fourth vacancy is that of the confidential secretary. Ruth has been here, as you noted, 26 years. I remember when we hired Ruth. And as Joe, as you noted at the last commission meeting, she single-handedly created the position that she's going to be leaving in about 3 weeks. She went from being a part-time secretary with former Chief Stevens to now making sure that we have all of our filings on time, that the budget she's able to work with. She does everything that the chief and the lieutenant and the deputy chief could imagine. And when Joe and John Strapaniak became the chief and deputy chief, respectively, some 12 years ago, there was not a lot of mentoring that had been in place for various reasons. And Ruth was able to keep the department, I think, largely together. It's not unfair to say that she has been the glue that has made transitions so much easier. Certainly, Joe, she provided you and John with an awful lot of support and ability. She did the same thing when Chief Warnick assumed office, and the same thing when Chief Hardin came in. She's gone. We no longer have that support. I look at the situation here that is unusual in that Jameson asked, what's the rush now to do something that hasn't been done for the last 10 months? And I think it's very clear that we have a lot of good people in the department. Joe, when you became the chief, one of your concerns, and I remember your interview very well, you were concerned about being perhaps set up to fail because of the lack of mentoring and lack of experience on all of those issues that came out. And you did a very good job. What I'm looking at now is that we have a vacancy due to a terrible tragedy that may go on for a period of months, maybe even many months. Mike, at the commission meeting, you indicated that we should have a deadline of January 1, and then if we don't have a satisfactory return, that we should look at other considerations. And it was the chairman that said that, you know, we shouldn't set any artificial deadlines. I have spoken with several doctors, and I understand that there is a significant amount of rehab and recovery period for someone who has had COVID, particularly to the extent that this officer did. And I will say, and I want to go on record as saying that Ken has done a terrific job for his 26 years here. You look at his resume, you look at his curriculum vitae, he's done a great job. The reality is, as I understand from what Mike had said at the last meeting, Ken was gravely ill. I understand from whatever is going on out on the street, maybe it's wrong, but he had been on a vent for about 5.5 weeks, flat on your back. You don't recover from that in a day, a week, or a month. If you're in bed flat in a medically induced coma for 3-4 days, you lose about 50% of your body mass. You have a lot of recovery to do. You have issues that are medical in nature that aren't going to go away in a very short period of time, maybe never. There may be issues about learning how to do certain things we take for granted again. I hope not.
Hey, Carl, I'm concerned about what you're saying about a specific patient and him being an employee of the township and his condition.
This is what
I'm not trying to throw a wrench in your gears or anything.
No,
I don't know if
these are concerns.
I don't know if it's a good road to go down.
Well, these are concerns that I have that I don't know that we are all considering necessarily when we look at this situation. I'm very, very concerned about all the vacancies there. I've got to believe that, Mike, when you worked for Ford Direct, the parent company, Alan Mullally came in looking for a crew that could step in and do a job right now, particularly with a company that was in such dire straits as Ford was several years ago. I look at some of the other CEOs that we've had out there, Jack Welch with General Electric, Warren Buffett with Berkshire Hathaway. These are concerns that I have, and it has been corporate practice to make sure you have people in place that can come in and do it. And I pray and hope that Ken is making a speedy recovery and comes back. But the rumors that I'm hearing are upsetting. We have a problem, I believe, in that so many of the arguments that I hear from people calling in is personality. If we take the personality out of this, and I know it sounds cold and it sounds hard and it sounds cruel, but if we take the personalities out of this and we look at what is possible here and now, the number 4 with the vacancy scares me. And I'm not interested in hiring from without. I don't have any kind of preconceived idea, but I think it is good sense if we're running this as a corporation and making these kinds of decisions that, as Mike said, let's cast a net. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what our people internally are able to do. Interview, make a difference. And I mentioned the number 1, and if we can take personalities back in for a second, I sincerely hope, and we should all pray for Ken's recovery. He has done a terrific job. My reasoning on that is by putting this off until another month or 2 months, Doesn't change anything because we still have to make a decision on what's best for all of the citizens of Grosse Ile and what's best for those 23 people that work in the department. And most importantly, what's best for Ken. And I really hope and pray that we do have a good recovery. That's where I'm coming from. Take the personalities out. Let's deal with what is now. And if 2 months from now, our prayers are answered, I'm great. I'm happy. But I'm concerned about what happens in 2 months, 4 months, and 6 months. And I don't like bringing this up, but as Mike, as you've said, we're fiduciaries, we have obligations, and I'm not prepared to wait, particularly when we have the 4 vacancies. That's my reason.
So I think that I think the problem we're facing right now with all these vacancies is a self-induced problem. People don't quit jobs, people quit bosses. And this board has been the boss of the police department for the past 10 months. And we have left them in an area of ambiguity and a difficult strait because some members of this board wouldn't accept the commission's recommendation to hire Ken Pelland as the new chief back in February and March. And I think you're right, Carl. This is a critical position, and we're at a watershed moment. And it's a position where institutional knowledge, experience, and local expertise are extremely significant. We've lost several key positions in the department, positions that implement policy, positions that set culture, positions that provide the backbone of our police department. And if we outsource this position now, we literally lose that opportunity to retain any institutional knowledge. We send several messages downstream, and one of those messages we're sending to the officers that are aspirational and motivated and trying to get promoted, that it doesn't matter what classes you go to, it doesn't matter, what experiences you have, that we're going to outsource promotions, and God forbid you get hurt or sick on the job, because then, you're out of luck, man. Sorry, we're going to move on. We're also sending a message to commissions, and the message we're sending to commissions is that we don't value their opinion and expertise. They made a recommendation to us in March. They gave us a qualified candidate. We should have accepted it then. Those are my comments.
Thank you,
you.
Jameson.
Yeah.
Joe?
Yes, first off, and I have the permission, I want to get this out there first. I have the permission from Mrs. Pelland. I actually had a phone conversation with Ken just the other day. He's doing fantastic. The trach is coming out. He is not seriously ill anymore. He's not grave. He's making a recovery. The doctors have told his wife that there should be no reason that within a couple of months, they don't find any serious issues with his lungs. So, I just want to get this straight out there that he's not on death's bed, and he's coming back to be the Ken Pelland we know. The other thing is, I find it just ironic. He's given us 28 years of exemplary service. Can't we give him 90 days? Now, if you don't want him as the police chief, then you don't want him as the police chief. But to give him 90 days to vote on the recommendation from the commission, I think we owe it to him. I want to mention another individual. I'm going to get back to Ken on this because this is about why I would vote against this action item. Is we have a gentleman, and you're right, Carl. His name is Doug Carmack. His operational skills are impeccable. Operational skills are different than the visionary skills that a chief has. I'm not saying Doug would not have them. He just needs some time in there. But as the operational leader of that police department, when this place fell apart for a month or so, he was absolutely excellent. That is the individual you want running the day-to-day operation when we have an issue. And I don't think waiting 90 days is critical. There's no emergency here. The emergency you have is, do you realize within 365 days, and we'll go back, because I'm not quite sure the day Mark left. Actually, I thought it was the 31st, but I was told it was January 1st. Irrespective of that, we've lost 6 people, not 4. We've lost 6 out of the police department. I've never heard of it. I've never seen it. I have no idea. That is their business, not mine. What I have to deal with as a board member now is to make sure we make the right decisions for that police department to be what it was, to move in the direction that we're going, and keep this boat moving forward, not just standing still in the water. So for us to go outside, you're either saying you don't want Ken Pellin as a chief. I get it if that's what it is you want or don't want. But the point is, he's given us the 28 years. Can't we give him 90 days? And I think that it would really be a disservice from what these individuals have done, Carl, in the last months. I don't know how many months, how hard they worked, how they burned themselves out, how they put the Groseville Police Department before their families. They are so burnt out in overtime and working. I still keep in contact with these people. I know you don't, maybe some of you don't like that I should be more of a trustee, but I still keep in contact because I like to know what's going on. I keep in contact with a couple of the managers, from the rec manager to the fire chief to the police chief. And I want to know what's going on. And I saw what's going on. And you talk about popping their bubble to go outside and try to find somebody. And I know you say, well, the inside gets to apply also, but you wouldn't do it if you really wanted someone from the inside. And I just ask that we give this gentleman, put a date on it. I don't know, and maybe Mr. Sori's on there right now, and I don't know, Tom, if there's an issue with a date and an individual coming back by saying, you know, can we give him 90 days to vote on what the police commission has recommended? I'm not sure of that, but my point is, can't we just do that for 90 days? There's no emergency that we haven't already done back in February. There'd be no change. It would be set up the same. And I will tell you that Doug Carmack's operational skills, let me just tell you what I used to do with him. And Doug can get on today and he can tell you that I'm telling the God's truth here. I used to go out on the very serious search warrants when he was in the DEA. I like to be a part of it when we did 2, 3, 4, 5 places all at once. And Doug Carmack was in charge of the briefing of every one of those. I saw skills in him that I don't see in a lot of people. It was phenomenal. And those skills were brought to this police department when this police department was sinking. And morale was good, unlike some of the, well, I don't even go there, but morale was good. They were working hard. Uti, you're laughing, you're shaking your head. You're muted if you'd like to say something to me. You're muted.
The things you're saying are so far off the point right now, and
okay.
as an employer,
but it's still my point. Okay, no, my point is
as an employer, I am concerned that you are making these judgments about employees at a public meeting. They are not being
wow.
And you know, he's not under review right now. We're simply having a discussion on whether or not we should go out to hire, you know, to put out the application for candidates, internal and or external. But we are not here to air personality assessments and job assessments of all the different staff of the township. I
have said nothing derogatory about anyone. I have only said good things about the ones, and this is the reason why I am not in favor of going outside. That builds the foundation for the way I'm going to vote. If you don't like it, you can shake your head and laugh at me all you want and be disrespectful, but that's fine. But no one knows these gentlemen and ladies better than I do. That's all. I'm giving them kudos where kudos belong and deserve. That's all. I'm trying to tell you that this police department will make it if we wait a few months. It went through the hardest time and made it. We can do it again. That was my point. Because you don't like that, because it doesn't go along with what you want in the situation, there's not much I can do with that. I'm sorry. Okay, but don't lecture me on things I shouldn't be talking about.
Putting words in my mouth.
Uda, Joe, do you have anything else to say?
No, sir, I am done.
Thank you. Anyone else? We know we always have Uda, somebody else just before her. But now, Dave, are you raising your hand?
My concern is, Joe is talking about whether it's 60 days or 90 days. What do we do if it doesn't come to fruition in 60 or 90 days?
Are you asking me, Dave?
Well, what I'm
I have an answer if you like.
Well, what I'm asking is, what do we do if we're not ready and we don't have an alternative plan in place to proceed from there in the event that Lieutenant Pellin is not able to return for whatever reasons, whether it's health or personal desire?
Mm-hmm.
Before we go any further, could we get Tom to tell us it's okay to discuss an employee's medical condition in an open meeting? I'm seriously concerned about that.
I agree.
Sure. Well, I think the Trustee Porcerelli and they've gone on and on about this for several meetings now. I don't know what's different about Lieutenant Pellin's condition. I would prefer that you guys don't talk about it, but you know,
I feel like you got much more specific.
Tom, may I just ask you something? Mrs. Pellin has given me permission because so many people have asked, Tom. That's the reason I was giving updates. When you have hundreds of people from the school system to other people asking me, texting me, that's why I did it, Tom. She gave me full permission to give updates on him because so many people were concerned. That's why. So I don't know if that changes anything, Tom. I respect whatever you tell me to do.
No, I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm just suggesting we could probably have that conversation without including that information at a public meeting. That's all.
Right. And remember, guys, what we're voting on here is not an individual. We're voting about posting the job. You're voting on posting the job. It's been and it's been specified that it's both internal and external candidates. It's not limited to one or the other. It's to get candidates that then will be reviewed just like you would if it were just external or were just internal. You do same process. You're going to go
by
through.
The police
you're going to have
commission.
your applications. You're gonna do interviews, and it's going to go through the commission to make a recommendation. It's going to follow the process.
So it'll go through the
all
police
this
commission again.
It's kind of simple. Do we post or don't we post? That's kind of what it is. Uda, you had something to say.
Well, I might as well put the words in my own mouth rather than have anybody else put them in there for me. This is not about Ken Pellin, and it shouldn't be about Ken Pellin. And this is the problem when people talk about employees in the first name basis as opposed to their job descriptions. We are out a police chief. We have an interim police chief for a year. If the rest of you don't recall, I do recall that we were about to make an appointment, and then all of a sudden accusations came out that had to be investigated. The next time we came close to making a decision, again, another investigation needed to take place. And then at another point, it seemed like it would be not classy to make the designation because of what was going on between the two top candidates. And so, yes, there are reasons, and I think our public knows what those reasons are, why we have to this date not made this decision. And I would like to think that for the residents of Grosse Ile and the businesses that count on our police department to protect us and to serve us in times of emergency, that we would think it would be a top priority to set the path in motion to look for candidates to fill these positions. And now one of our candidates has decided to retire. Another of our previous candidates is off on medical leave. I would like to remind Joe that he was giving us information through family, perhaps, that not even his employer our township manager was able to get, because when an employee is out on medical leave, you don't have access to that employee. I have questions I would like to ask that employee, but I can't because he's off on medical leave. And so he is deserving of the time to heal and recover whatever it takes. His employer cannot, needle in there and start asking questions and making all kinds of requests. So putting this measure on to a board vote tonight is simply, in my view, a procedural step to say the board recognizes that our department needs to secure a management, a leadership line, and that we need to have a team that is able to continue moving forward on the day that interim chief Brent Hardin retires. We need to do the same for the deputy chief. We need to do the same for the confidential secretary. We need those positions filled in order that we can secure to our residents and our community and to the rest of the staff of the department that we care that they have a leadership command in place at when they need to have it in place. And now, whether or not candidates are willing, ready, and able to make the application, that is not really relevant here. The township's job is to make sure that people know these openings exist, that they can make application for these openings. And then it's up to the township to decide, how we're going to interview, who we're going to interview, when we're going to interview, and when we make the decisions. And I would like to remind Mr. Jameson that part of the problem— Mr. Yeager, I see your name, Jameson, I'm sorry. Part of the problem with the police commission was that, as you know, we had a discussion about procedure and how the interviews were conducted. And so every step along the way up to now, we've had missteps. And I think it's time that we start over, that we put out put these positions out for people to apply to. I love the people that we have working for us. Can they step up to the plate? Well, let them decide if they're going to step up to the plate. Let us decide during the interview process if they have the skills that we want them to have to be in that position. But that's all we can discuss right now, and that's all we should be discussing right now.
So you're going to be interviewing them, correct, Uta?
I think
you said you're going to be interviewing them.
I think at this point, the board should decide who is going to do the interviewing and set a process for how those interviews should take place.
So you're going to bypass the police commission?
We're getting off Uta and Joe and getting off again. The issue is, are we going to post the position, or are we not?
Yeah.
All those other things will come after.
I have a question. We've mentioned posting the positions. We have a process for this, right? Are we going to follow that process? Is it going to go through the commission process and that interviewing process, or is there going to be
the commission's job is
outside of Ordinance 6710?
Jameson, the commission's job is to make a recommendation. That's the commission's job.
Yeah.
That's and they will get to make a recommendation.
We're going to follow the process that's laid out in our ordinances. That's what
which
saying, right?
Which says that they make a recommendation. That's what it says.
What does the policy say for interviewing that? Because Clerk O'Connor,
I don't believe it does.
The process says the police commission, Jim, will do the interviews. That's
I
what the
said
process
nothing
says.
about who was going to interview. I said the board should decide how the interview process needs to take place. I made no statement as to how that should happen. I'm just saying, once we decide to go out, that this is a process that the township needs to direct. And I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just saying that
again, we're getting off. What we have before us is an action item asking the board Do we post or don't we post? That's what we're dealing with today.
I just want to make sure we're going to follow the proper process when we post it, and there's going to be some shenanigans. So,
Jim, and I'm sorry that I brought that. It's just that she did say we will be interviewing. She said it.
He said
I'm
the
sorry.
We being the
speaking
township.
generally as the township. Yeah.
I took that as the
We
township,
being the
not.
Township, Joe. Don't hear what you want to hear. Hear what someone is saying.
Let's not, okay.
Okay.
Mike,
I'll
did
deal
you
with
have
that.
something to say?
Yeah, I've been really patient. Yes, of course, I have something to say. So I know what we're trying to make a decision upon. I'm very disappointed that for whatever reason, I don't know any real true policy reason why we weren't able to get the police commission's recommendation on the agenda tonight. I saw some other things put on after the agenda was posted on the News Herald. Didn't we have the update or something, the audit or some note came out, but not really worried about that, but I just like you to know that it is disappointing. I think, if we go back and we look at this entire process when Mark Warnick retired, and it was kind of suddenly, by February 4th, the commission had decided that, we had two good candidates, real good candidates, and we were going to keep it inside, no need to go outside like we've done for the past 30 years. And I think the commission has done a pretty good job. When they follow the commission, I think we've gotten some pretty good or really good, officers, managers, police chiefs. I think Joe and Bill Barron are, proof of that. And they followed the process. Yeah, I think Uta mentioned that there's some kind of issue with the first round or whatever, where it was a closed session. And I think all we did is do it the same way we did it for 30 years. I mean, when we it was always closed sessions when it came to interviews. If somebody decided that they wanted it to be confidential, we did it. So if that mistake was made, well, it wasn't certainly made on the 19th when we had our last meeting, and we went to great lengths to really just take a look at the current situation we're in today, all the challenges we have. And you know what? They're all real. They really are. I can't argue with any of you on that. These are real challenges, somewhat self-induced, but we had that interview process or not interview process, but we reviewed 31 years of performance, accomplishment of Mr. Lieutenant Pellin, and the fact that he was down and out, with COVID, and but also healing very rapidly. We were going to recommend officially that we hold off a little while. Okay. See if his pace of recovery continues, and then make a decision. If it goes the other way, then certainly, we could change, but give him a reasonable period of time. This person has given 28 years of his livelihood to us, and I think we owe him something. I mean, he had been our choice since February, and we never really got a vote on it. And, Jim, you remember when we met, the first time, Paul, you and I, you were kind of pushing as an option to promote both of these people, Brent to chief and Ken to deputy chief. And we all agreed that we would follow the process and, go through the commission process. And by February 4th, we had a recommendation, and all of a sudden we had a budget issue.
Well, Well, that's not the way it worked, but that's fine. We did have a budget issue, but that was before you even had your interviews. You were told, if you have your interviews, nothing's going to happen until we do the budget. You knew it up front. You knew it before you had the interviews. So it's
Jim,
disingenuous to say that it came up after. It did not.
We said the first time we met, even on February 4th, you were saying, why don't we just promote them both?
No, I didn't. I never said that.
Yes, you did, Jim.
No, I did not.
Yeah. So why don't we go that route?
No, I did not say that. I said,
that's how I remember it. I'm sure Paul remembers it that way
we talked about options, Mike, and the various options. That was
you made
one
a
of
proposal, Jim. Jim, you made a proposal. My memory's good. I said no. We're going to follow. We want,
and that's fine because none of that means anything to this issue.
We weren't going to circumvent the police commission again.
We are.
So then all of a sudden we have a budget issue. We got to wait till the end of March to get that resolved, which really didn't turn out to be an issue.
Well,
and then after that, conveniently, there's an investigation. One that didn't indict anyone. There was no criminal charges. Somehow Ken Pellin's name got mixed into that. And that was a reason for him not being considered. And that lasted until what? September. But here we are. And now he's got COVID. And, I sat at this meeting on the 19th and we took a fresh look at the situation. It was an open meeting. We looked at the fact that, he was sick and his wife had given us permission to talk about it openly. There's prayer trains all over and everything else. I mean, there's a lot of people concerned about his condition. And what I would recommend that we do is we don't go to the outside. What we do is the best possible way in the world to mitigate this risk that we have, and it is temporary, is we have a gentleman sitting on this board who could legally step in. It's my understanding, based on counsel that I received, that there's a certain period of time that he can work up to 1,000 hours, which is 6 months, and still serve as a trustee in a community under 40,000 people. You mentioned it yourself, and Carl, you're right. You're all right. I mean, I'm very worried about Brent leaving. Brent, has a lot of experience, but boy, you take out Ruth and Brent, guess what? I mean, she's the glue, right? And so nobody from the outside is going to go in and replace Brent or Ruth with the amount of experience and knowledge that is required to make that department operate. But within our hands, we have somebody that'd be willing to work for us, and do that job, Joey Porcherelli, who is an absolutely outstanding chief of police, probably one of the best ones we've ever had, if not the best. And he can go in there and help us hire, the new clerk or secretary, confidential secretary for chief of police, train her. I know Ruth has mentioned that she'd be willing to come in, and we could probably have 2 or 3 months of actually improving our situation, and then take a look at where we're at with Ken, and if he doesn't continue to improve at a rapid pace, or something, then we do something different. Okay. But that's what you'd really do in business. If you had somebody like that, you bring them in. That's why they always bring these retirees in all the time, because they have the experience, they have the knowledge. If you're really seriously concerned about mitigating that risk, that's what you do. You bring someone in like him as a consultant to Brent and even Brent will learn from Joe. And then it will make that, we got a month to bring in a new, confidential secretary. I guess is that the term they use, or administrator, Joe, for Ruth? I always get it confused.
It's confidential, yes.
Yeah. And bring her in. You got her getting up, the new person getting up to, speed, and we have continuity. Why take this? You bring somebody from the outside. What are they going to do? They're going to need to be trained. Guess what? There's not going to be anybody there to train them. If you really want to mitigate risk, if we're really serious about it and genuinely serious about it, this is what we should do. It's an option. I mean, Tom can check into it, make sure there's no issue there. But my God, I mean, he could jump into that position or help out even on a part-time basis and really reduce the risk. Give Ken 60, 90 days, whatever it is. You'll know if he's going to be recovering. I know that his doctors have said to Nancy, and Nancy has shared this with us, there's no reason why he shouldn't have a full recovery. He's doing extremely well. And you know what? If Ken were my son, or if he was your son, I think this is probably what you'd want to do. This guy has made tremendous contributions, and I would encourage everybody on the board to watch the video from the October 19th Police Commission meeting. It's very informative. There was 8 recommendations that were reviewed. A lot of the material over his resume was reviewed of 31 years. We had a great, we had a substantive and classy endorsement, both from Joe, who's Ken's former boss.
Are we still talking about the same motion? I'm lost.
Even Brent. So anyways.
I think what Mike's saying is
let's mitigate the risk.
It's what Mike's saying is vote no on the action item that is before us. To summarize very much of the rationale.
And give me the rationale for it to really mitigate the risk. Bring in,
if we vote no on it,
run the plan.
If we vote no on it, we can put together a transition team, and we can have a more
less risky proposition.
Yeah, less risky transition.
Well rehearsed, gentlemen. Well played. Well played.
We're not playing it. You may be playing it, but I'm not.
Let's not.
I'm sorry.
Let's not get off here.
Are you kidding me?
Let's stick to the issue, please. Anything else on whether we post or not post? With that, let's vote. All right. Jameson.
Nay. Thank you.
Okay. I got ahead of myself to restate the motion to have the township manager post the police chief position. Pretty straightforward. Nay from Jameson, correct?
Still nay.
Still nay. Thank you. Uda.
Aye.
Joe.
Nay, sir.
Nay. David.
Aye.
Carl.
Aye.
Mike.
Nay.
Nay. And I vote aye. The action passes. We will post the police position. That is the end of our action items. Clerk's report, please.
She left. Nope.
Clerk's report, please.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have just a very short report. Happily, I serve as the liaison to the Fire Commission, where we have none of these issues and life is good. Our police chief was in touch with me earlier today to say that year to date, we've had 526 rescues and 125 fire calls. We are handling our disciplinary issues internally with the township manager and the fire chief and his team. We are training on Wednesdays, and everybody is working hard to keep the township safe. And that is all I'm going to say for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Nadu, Treasurer's Report.
Thank you. For the month of, excuse me, for the month of September, the township had $12.7 million invested, and with an interest rate of 0.0341%, we earned $310 in investment interest. We're still collecting the summer tax rolls, although they're now in the penalty phase, and we've collected 97% of the total tax rolls. And let's see, with regard to the Recreation Commission, we're putting the final touches on the Recreation Master Plan, which we'll be announcing in December, a public hearing on the excuse me, on the master plan. And our next meeting is November 10th. And on the DPS Commission, our next meeting will be November 9th. And I believe the Church Road resurfacing project has been completed, I believe, except for the striping on the road.
Striping is there.
Oh, striping is there, then I'm sorry. And we are nearly to completion with the Meridian Water Main project. And lastly, I want to add my thanks to Chief Hardin, Ms. Kaledas, and Mr. Jones for their service to the community, and thank them for everything they have done for the township during their careers. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, David. Trustees reports. Mr. Beletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I have the privilege of sitting on Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission and Greenways Open Space. I do not have anything of great substance to report this month or this meeting. We will have things to report for next month, but I do want to take this time to thank Chief Hardin for all of his work that he's done for 26 years. I had the privilege of working with him, getting to know him, and he is simply a very class act. He's a wonderful man, strong principle. I wish him a long and happy retirement. I've also known employee Gary Jones, although I don't think of Gary as an employee. I think of him as somebody that's always there when there's a hand that's needed. When we were doing the deer culling and operating out of the DPS building at the time, Gary had space. He had to move equipment around. He put up with, as hard as we scrubbed and worked and chlorinated, you still have residue there. And he put up with that for 2 months every year for about 9 years, 10 years. And Gary just kind of took it in stride. There were a lot of complications because of the product when you go through the field dressing. But Gary was just wonderful. And frankly, I consider him to have been a very good person, a very fine township employee. And I wish Gary the best for a very long and happy retirement. He and Solange are great people, and they deserve it. And last, but certainly not least, I've had the privilege of knowing Ruth for 26 years, and I remember her interview. And I asked her a question about, Ruth, you've got to leave to catch a plane to Florida. You have to leave at noon. And the chief comes in at 9 o'clock and gives you a project that you have to do. It's going to take you 2 hours. And the deputy chief comes in after the chief leaves. and they're both leaving for the day. And the deputy chief says, Ruth, I've got a project I have to have done today as well, and that's going to take 2 hours. And I remember asking Ruth, how do you decide which one do you finish? And in what order and at what point do you leave? And she looked at me and she says, I do them both. I do them both well, and they're going to get done. And I'm very, very happy to say in all of the 26 years I've known Ruth, she has never failed to deliver. I think what Joe said at the last commission meeting was just absolutely correct. She has been duct tape, crazy glue, gorilla glue. She has been the person that has been very, very solid, dependable through several chiefs. And I just can't say enough about her. Ruth, I hope that you and Jim have an absolutely wonderful career in retirement. And certainly hope you'll come back and give us some advice and guidance on your successor. But to the three of you, I simply say thank you. I've lived here for 64 years, and it is hard for me to find people that have been such an impact in so many different levels. And I just want to say thank you. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mike?
Okay, yeah, liaison to the police department. We had a meeting on the 19th. We had a pretty loaded schedule. We talked a lot about, the accomplishments of Ruth and Brent over the years, and expressed a lot of gratitude. A lot of people expressed a lot of gratitude. They will be missed. We got an update on the deer call. That is going very well. I think, they've done a good job. I know I mentioned this at the last meeting, but they've been able to secure incremental deer tags this year for a fall call, in addition to the winter call. And I think, I'm confident that we're really going to see a reduction. I just noticed walking through a lot of the open space, which I do quite often with my dogs, and I'm seeing a lot less deer. And still a lot, still a good many. They're fun to see, but not an overwhelming amount. So hopefully some progress has been made, and it's going to continue to be made. We promoted Officer Todd Brozak to sergeant, well deserved, and that was great. Again, hate to be redundant, but be remiss if I wasn't. We spent a lot of time reviewing, Officer Pellin's credentials, accomplishments, contributions to this community. And he just has an impeccable record of helping the schools and so on and so forth. There were 8 different recommendations that were presented or read. And, I think in a final class act for Brent, he even went up and said that, he recognized Ken's, credentials to do the job. And I thought that was really classy. That was pretty much it for the 19th. On the 21st, we had a special meeting where we reviewed the applications of 5 officers, potential officers for hire. And I have to say it was very difficult in a good way. We really got some strong candidates, and we know that there's going to be more hires based upon our current situation. And we probably ended up with 3 outstanding candidates and had to decide on one. And their background checks are taking place right now, and probably within I'm told the next 30 to 45 days, we'll be able to put them on at least one on the agenda to get hired. But it went really well. And, despite everything we're hearing out there as to how difficult it is to get good candidates, the team did a good job in finding some. So I guess a lot of people are still viewing Groseal as a very good place to work. So that is my update.
Thank you, Mike. Joe, there you are.
Yes, I'm here.
You moved around on my screen.
Oh, okay. I sit on the Airport Commerce Park Commission, and I want to say our last meeting, and I'm still learning the facets of the airport and how they do business, but I will say Janelle McNee is now the acting manager down there. And apparently the commission said that she is doing a wonderful job. So I appreciate that. She's doing a great job until they get their interviews and recommend somebody to the board to be picked for a manager. But things are running very smooth. They're trying to, obviously got to go out for Gary's position. So they've got a lot of things going at the airport also. I'd also like to thank Bill Kostek. I know I think the meeting before this, but the Church Road, and Dave, I think you've mentioned this, but Church Road, I think, is finally done. I watched the DPS. They were cleaning up the sides of the road. The company, and I'm sorry, Jim, I don't remember the name. I did have it, of the contractor that did the job. They did an excellent job. So Bill, thank you, and your DPS commission. The road looks great. It's recently been striped. It looks very good, and it's very smooth. Some redos of that nature doesn't come out that smooth, but this one did. So I'd like to again thank them and the DPS. So that's it for tonight. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, it was Al's asphalt that did the.
That's it.
Actually did the work. Yeah, and that did come out nice, and that just shows you when you put your mind to it. With what little resources we have on this island, the commissions do a heck of a job, and that Church Road, I mean, especially for you and I, Joe, that drive it every day.
Yeah.
What a great improvement.
It was, and I noticed it. Thank you again.
Yep. Thank you, Joe. Jameson.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I want to second Joe's remarks regarding the Church Road paving. I don't drive down it a lot, but it's great to do it without fully exercising the off-road shocks on my Jeep. So I don't know personally any of the 3 individuals retiring, but I do know what it's like to give 20 years of blood, sweat, and tears to an organization, and how significant of an accomplishment that is, and how much it means to stop doing that. So thank you all, Mr. Jones, Mr. Hardin, Mrs. Kaledas, for your service. I sit on the Zoning Board of Appeals. We're meeting tomorrow to review an application for variance from Galindo's, who is hoping to put an awning over their porch, which I think is really exciting for our downtown. So we'll see how that goes tomorrow, and I have nothing further to report.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Township Attorney, Tom, do you have anything for us tonight?
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, as you may or may not know, the 33rd District Court is continuing to conduct matters via Zoom. When matters at the discretion of the court, the judge can require the individual to appear in person. They are having all the prosecutors, which includes me, attend in person for all the hearing dates. And it seems to be working out rather well. We're getting in and getting the stuff done as we can. There are some additional changes, but as to procedure under that, and I know that they're working diligently with the Supreme Court on what's going to be the right method going forward. Other than that, I'm always available. I do hear from a couple board members every once in a while about what's going on. So anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer any of them. Just get a hold of me during the day and go over with it. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Managers report, Derek.
Just a couple of updates. Joe had mentioned we're going to be conducting interviews for the airport manager position. Those will be happening this Friday. We have an interview for the community development DDA director position. That'll be happening on November 1st. The confidential secretarial position for the police department, I believe, closes this Friday. And then the airport maintenance position that we have advertised, that closes the end of this week as well. So we're coming to a conclusion on a number of these advertisements we have posted. Last week, I worked with the department managers as well as the treasurer and the supervisor and the finance director to review our mid-year financial status. So keeping track of the projects that the various managers are working on and within their departments and also where they're at financially. So that went very well. We are also working, the finance director and myself, on reviewing our healthcare renewal, which renews the first of the year. So we're reviewing various options for employee coverages. So that's in process. Last two items, engineering has started on the taxiway alpha reconstruction that the board had approved a couple of meetings ago. So there was an on-site visit that took place last week. So that's in process. And last but not least, our next bridge update meeting is in the second week in November. So we'll provide an update as soon as we get that information for the residents. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Derek. Appreciate that. And my report, I don't have a whole lot, but to follow up on the bridge, the November, we're getting close to the end of our late fall reopening. It is on schedule. The last two piers that are being worked on will be done prior to the structure being finished, but the structure 2 is on schedule to be done, so that we will have our late fall reopening of the bridge that we're all very much looking forward to. Just a quick note on McClellan Steel. The final inspection was supposed to be done in October. It was moved, and it is now scheduled for November 18th. And that is all I have for tonight.
Mr. Supervisor?
Yes.
I have a question vis-a-vis the bridge.
Yes.
And I was asked by a resident to bring this to you at the meeting. Last time the bridge was down for repairs is a number of years ago. My kids were toddlers, so it's a while ago. But I think Wayne County, if I'm not mistaken, worked with the township to do a ribbon cutting once the bridge reopened.
Correct.
So this resident remembered that, and he suggested that we organize a parade across the bridge once the bridge reopens. Don't shoot the messenger. I am simply passing that message along to you to pass it along to the county, that there are some residents who are getting giddy and would like to celebrate the time when the bridge opens.
We, as we all do, and there will be some type of ceremony for the reopening of the bridge with the various parties certainly being present that truly worked on it and made it happen. So we do have that in mind. So thank you, and thank your resident. All right. We have no discussion item. Public comment. Again, this is a change. Public comment now is on anything you would like, not just the action items. So public comment, state your name and where you live, 3 minutes. And Mr. Friel, if you would, please.
Yes, do we have any public comment for the end of the meeting here? John Sabat.
Mr. Sabat.
Thank you.
Fire away.
I just want to start about the Wayne County. You know, before we've been having a lot of meetings but I think with Derek involved now, I think we're gonna see a lot of action and results. I think that we should look at possibly looking into a private bridge by Grosio. We have DTE, we have Trenton on the other side, and we also have Grosio owning property on this side. Also, are we in, Derek, were we in all the trade journals nationally? Did you put
We published in, I believe, 5 or 6 trade journals for the RFQ, ones that were recommended by our civil engineers.
I think we should just forget what our civil engineers said, look at doing all the trade journals. I think we should also call the federal transportation department, see if we can talk to some of their people and see what they recommend, and also put it on a national bid, because New York, Maryland, New England have much greater types of bridges like we have. Another issue is this whole thing with the bridge. Just imagine if the toll bridge goes down, what will really happen? So forget about, you know, this bridge going down. So I think we don't have the luxury, and maybe we should attend. Derek, are you allowed to attend all the meetings, or can you send a representative to attend all the meetings and be in all correspondence to do with our bridge? Because that is our livelihood. It might be a county bridge, but without it, we're compromised. So those are recommendations I'm making. I'm not an expert. I'm just making these recommendations. And I know there was a lot of talk in the past with you in the driver's seat. I think we're going to see a lot of time and quantity equals the right measurement of results. So we're very lucky to have that. Now, with regards to Mr. Pellin, and by the way, Derek, thank you for your meeting on West River with the individual I talked to this evening. As far as Lieutenant Pellin, I think it's a closed case. We had one individual make comments about medical. Number one, he's not a medical doctor. Number two, Carl, you're not even qualified to talk about medical background on someone. And I'm surprised that our legal counsel has allowed this to continue unless they're given permission from the family to talk about it. Mizuta, you made a comment about unqualified employer. I think you fit that description. And you said that there was no issues with the fire department. That was fire commission making that recommendation. So the credit goes there. And that was a great selection for the fire team. So I think the board really needs to know, keep their hands off from the professional. If you're not qualified to make a comment, you should follow your commission's lead. That's what they get elected, and that's what they're there for. They didn't get elected because they're not qualified. So the board members need to understand they need to be very careful what they say. And Ms. Uta, I think you crossed the line very unprofessionally, okay? And I'm really, really disappointed you did that, totally. I know I probably don't mean anything to you, but I'm not the only person saying that. As far as
John,
yeah.
your time is nearly up here.
I got about 35 seconds. Thank you. As far as the situation with the interim chief, I think that's a great idea, Mr. Yeager. No, Jarecki, sorry, Mr. Jarecki. And as far as the overall continuation of the police commission's 5-0 vote should be carried. And he is going to make a true recovery, and not even the good Lord has taken part in this meeting, but I'm sure he's taking part in Mr. Pellin's recovery. And shame on anybody on the board that says there should be a number out 90 days or 60 or 120. Mr. Jarecki, I think, made that comment just to try and appease everybody, but Mr. Bundy, allow this to happen. He's making the right decision, and this is the best thing for the island. Thank you.
Thank you to Mr. Sabat.
Okay, Kathy Walker.
Okay, I got 3 quickies. When did we change the time to 7? I thought at the last meeting, Jim, you asked for them to change it, and they said no. And now suddenly it's...
No, we are trying this out we're trying this out, trying the various things that we talked about, one being the time, one being the switching of the public comments, what could be made, and more discussion on heavy issues. And we're trying this out in just seeing how it goes, and then we will, as a board, decide to make it permanent or not.
Okay, so there was no vote, right?
That is correct.
Okay, 2, I was really disappointed with you guys going outside. You had, going outside for looking for candidates for the police chief. You had a really great option there with former Chief Joe Porcelli, who could come in and help out, give real continuity, get, the morale up. I think you guys missed a real opportunity on that one. And lastly, I like the idea of the bridge, the party and all that. It's great. And I'd really like if you'd carry that on to having live meetings. If you can meet and have parties with the bridge, we can have parades down Macomb Street. You guys go to the office. Why can't we have live meetings? I think there would be, if there were the live meetings, as most of the commissions already do, you would have a lot more interaction with the public. And I'm beginning to feel like you guys don't want to see the public. I know that seems paranoid, but I'm beginning to think you guys don't want to see us. And it's becoming like the old board, the 4-3 old board, just new faces. People switch sides. Anyways, I'm still very supportive of the board, but I'm hoping you guys get a little more mellow and try to see other points of view than just your own. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Well, Brian, go ahead. Is there anybody else?
Okay, do we have another public comment tonight? Bob Zelasco.
Mr. Z. Oh, Bob,
Yep,
you're on
mute.
You're on mute.
Mr.
There you
B,
go.
I'd like to compliment the board on their vote to renew going out for the RFQ, RFP. I think it's a good idea. I hate to say this, but we have to remember why we're talking engineering here. We had 3 years in a row, the engineering report was found to be falsified. It took Wayne County 3 years to find it while we were driving back and forth over that bridge. Also, I, like many other people, have stood down by the shoreline and looked at this bridge for 1.5 years. If the engineering program would have been flawless in the first place, we wouldn't be looking at that. So let's remember that. On the chief of police, I'm sorry to say on that vote, I'm very disappointed on the 4 votes to go to the outside. I can remember, and first of all, Doug Carmack has been acting in a lieutenant position, plus picking up additional responsibilities and working with Mr. Hardin for quite some time now. Our new sergeant was an acting sergeant for many, I can't tell you how many, probably over 1 year, when the former acting sergeant was on medical. Bringing that to a point, I can remember when Mr. Barron and Mr. Scrocky retired, we brought up a lieutenant and a sergeant to replace those 2 positions. And following was 10 years of history that we can be awful proud of. John Straponiak and Joe Porcelli did one heck of a job. We've got that talent, again, within the department. I'm going to bring in a new chief from the outside. How long is it going to take him to learn the department? Let's not forget that. These people already know this. I think going to the outside is, for many reasons, a big mistake. Big mistake. And in the meantime, if Lieutenant Pellin comes on the mend, and we're going to know where he's at probably by the time Mr. Hardin retires on the 3rd of December, it's what you call a win-win. Going to the outside is a bad mistake. very bad. And I'm sorry that the vote went down that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. That's been said a couple of times. Again, just to remind everybody, we're not just going to the outside. Everybody's can put in for this. So, and this is just a posting. So please keep that in mind. Brian, anyone else?
Okay, do we have any other public comment tonight? Greg Karmazin.
Greg.
Okay.
Hi, Greg.
Greg Karmazin. I echo Bob Zelasco's comments there. Really was I think a good example of the board working together on the vote on the bridge engineer. There was a good give and take on that, and there were good questions raised. I thought they were answered well, and I commend the board for its work on that issue. As a suggestion on how to modify the RFP, one thing I would suggest is a possibility that you narrow the focus of the RFP to only the Parkway Bridge, because let's be realistic about the focus of our concerns right now is mainly the Parkway Bridge, and that might improve the response to the RFP or RFQ. Also, reaching out to the departments of transportation in Ohio and Illinois, MDOT, Michigan, and other states, you might find lists of bridge engineers that are qualified to do inspection work in those states, and presumably they may not be doing much work with Wayne County. So you might find a list of, to target, to be proactive, to reach out to possible firms. And finally, there was some comment about, the county's engineers making representations that Grosse Ile could use or would hear. And one of the things that, quite frankly, I've heard from some pretty reliable sources is that the county's engineers are under non-disclosure agreements, so they're not talking to the public. They're not talking to the county, to Grosse Ile. They're talking to their clients. So whatever advice they're giving to Wayne County, Grosse Ile's not getting the benefit of it. They might get it indirectly through the county staff, but they're not getting it directly from the township's officials, are not getting it directly from the engineers that work for the county. Moving on to the police chief vote, very disappointed. I think this is something that let's be real about what happened tonight. This was obviously a vote against the police commission. It was a vote against the police commission's recommendation. If this board was serious about public safety on Grosse Ile and the concerns of the urgency that some have raised, they would have taken this up in February. That was when the police commission made the recommendation to hire Lieutenant Pellin by a unanimous vote. And I realize that there have been some representations or assertions made about reasons why that recommendation wasn't heard. I've researched it. I've talked to all the members of the police commission. I've found no evidence to support the assertion that there was a budget issue. None at all. And then also this issue about investigation, that's a smear. That's a smear that was directed against Lieutenant Pellin. And I challenge anybody to provide some evidence to the public that says differently. And you can look at Township Manager Dale Reams, former manager Reams' memo in July is evidence of the actual smearing that took place against the police commission and Lieutenant Pellin. It's disgusting and disgraceful. So let's be honest with the public about what's going on here. And it's really not the interests of public safety that are being advanced by what happened tonight. If it was, the board would have been voting on the police commission's recommendation. And finally, I'll just say that Trustee Porcelli said it best tonight. Lieutenant Pellin's given this community 28 years of service. And if anybody in this township board can't give Lieutenant Pellin 60 to 90 days to recover, there's something seriously wrong here. Seriously wrong. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, do we have any other public comment tonight? I'm not seeing any.
Hearing none.
Motion. to adjourn.
Oh, sorry.
We have a motion
Support.
and a support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
I thought our discussions went well. We had some differences of opinion, but by and large, we handled that well, guys. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Night.
Hey, Carl,